Chapter 1375. All right, I understand. Wu Yin rubbed his forehead as if he had a headache. Let's put this aside for now. Don't you have something you want to say to me? Uh, and Luca dilly-dallied for a while. After wasting a long time, she finally stopped blushing. Her small fists clenched together, and a trace of nervousness appeared on her face. Lord Lun, I want to ask you something about Gawain. I guess so. Wu Yin wasn't surprised. He nodded and gestured for Luca to continue. Seeing this, Luca's delicate little face instantly became downcast. Her eyes also revealed a strong sense of loss. Lord Lun, did you already know why Gawain rejected me? Shouldn't I be the one asking you that? Wu Yin threw Luca's question back at her without batting an eyelid. Did you already know the reason why Gawain would reject you? Luca opened her mouth, and a dim look appeared in her purple eyes. I don't know. It's not that you didn't know. You just didn't realize it. Wu Yin looked straight into Luca's beautiful eyes. No matter how slow you are, you should have noticed that every time you got close to Gawain, whenever Gawain approached you, you would subconsciously put some distance between us. When you got close enough, you would feel fear. I'm right, aren't I? Lord Lun. Luca looked up and met Wu Yan's eyes. In other words, Gawain rejected me because I was afraid of Gawain, right? To be more precise, you are the one who is afraid of riding Gawain. Wu Yin corrected her and closed the distance between them. No matter what, Gawain did it for you. You can't deny that. Luca's shoulders trembled when she heard Wu Yan's words. Tears welled up in her eyes. As expected, it's all my fault. That's why Gawain is so weak. He might even die. He finally understood the reason why Gawain had refused to let him ride his mount. For the first time, Luca was concerned about something other than her own riding. She cared about Gawain's life. It was clear that Luca was more concerned about Gawain's life than whether or not she could ride fall. Luca and Gawain. Although there was a serious gap between the master and servant now, they still put each other's affairs first from the beginning to the end. Should I say, as expected of master and servant? Luca, now is not the time for you to be sad, Wu Yin said coldly to Luca, who was on the verge of tears. Because of my care, Gawain hasn't reached the point where he has to sacrifice his own life to protect you. However, he is indeed getting weaker every day. If this continues, Gawain will die one day due to the lack of star essence. Are you willing to watch Gawain die? Luca sobbed and shook her head like a rattledrum. Then you should know that the hope of saving Gawain lies with you alone. Wu Yin held Luca's astonishingly thin shoulders. You have to be strong and overcome the trauma in your heart. Only then can you regain Gawain's recognition and re-establish your star essence path with Gawain. Return to the relationship you had before. Return to the relationship we had before. Luca looked at Wu Yin, a little shaken. But can I do it? Gawain will be fine. As long as you recover, he will return to you immediately. No matter what, you are the master he is willing to risk his life to protect. How can he not acknowledge you? Wu Yin stroked Luca's cute little head. Don't worry, I will help you too. Lord Lun. Luca stared blankly at Wu Yin, who was gently stroking her head with a gentle smile. She blushed and quickly wiped away her tears. She nodded vigorously. I understand, Lord Lun. It's good that you understand. Wu Yin breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. You're here to serve me in bed. How can I not help you? Ugh. Luca's small and delicate pointy ears turned red from the roots. Kaboom! Just as the atmosphere between the two of them began to become intimate, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck down from the dark sky, bringing with it a deafening sound of thunder. Luca shrieked, and with tears in her eyes, she reflexively threw herself at Wu Yin. Wu Yin was caught off guard and ended up hugging her warm and fragrant body. However, before he could get a good feel of the soft body in his arms, a shriek that is 1,000 times more miserable than Luca's shriek came from outside the window. The shriek is so shrill that it's even more frightening than the thunder from before. Hearing the screams coming from the window, Luca's face paled. She thought it was some kind of supernatural being. She closed her eyes, and her arms around Wu Yan's waist tightened. Separated by a thin layer of pajamas, Luca's beautiful body was pressed into Wu Yan's embrace. An astonishingly soft sensation kept coming from his front, but he didn't have the leisure to enjoy it. He looked towards the window and grumbled in a resentful tone. "Are you going to keep hiding?" As the voice slowly faded away, the entire space fell silent. But not long after, the originally tightly shut window was suddenly pushed open, revealing 3 beautiful faces outside the window. In the end, Rebecca didn't seem to realize that she was caught peeping. She smiled to herself. "Were we still found out?" "Your Highness." Cosette patted the back of Sylvia, who was hugging him tightly, with a helpless expression on his face. "It's just a bolt of lightning. Is there need to be so scared?" But, Sylvia looked up with tears in her eyes. When she saw Wu Yin and Luca hugging each other, her pitiful expression disappeared and turned into a ferocious one. "Cosette is right. It's just a bolt of lightning. How long are you going to hug each other?" Luca finally reacted. She let out a soft cry and hurriedly pulled herself away. The deathly pale color on her face was replaced by a blush. Looking at Luca's cute blushing face, even Wu Yin couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. "Now is not the time for you to flirt." At this time, Rebecca spoke. She stood on Guffrin's head and looked at the sky with a serious expression. "I'm afraid things aren't looking good." "Not looking good?" Hearing this, everyone present was stunned. That's... When Wu Yin and Luca came to the window, they looked up with Sylvia and Cosette. They followed Rebecca's gaze and looked at the sky. What they saw made their expressions change. The night sky that should have been clear a second ago was covered by a layer of pitch-black clouds that spiraled like a whirlpool. Streaks of red lightning flashed back and forth in the clouds, bringing with them the sound of thunder. A heavy, gloomy, and evil aura seemed to have descended from the sky, shrouding the entire Ansari Dragon Riding Academy. Roar! Gyuvlin and Lancelot's eyes glinted with ferocity as they roared at the gloomy sky. Without the consent of Rebecca and Sylvia, the 2 holy dragons began to circulate their mana, causing mana to ripple around them. Astonishingly, he had already entered battle mode. It seems like Gyuvlin and Lancelot have sensed something as well. Rebecca's expression turned grave. This phenomenon, Sylvia's icy blue eyes fluctuated violently. "It's the same as that time." Wu Yin stared at the sky covered by pitch-black whirlpool-like clouds. A cold light flashed in his eyes. "Corpse Ash Dragon." That's right. The situation in the sky was exactly the same as when the Corpse Ash Dragon appeared and attacked Ansari. Rumble. A dull thud reverberated in the ominous night sky without any warning. Along with the reverberation of the sound, the ground of the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy also began to rumble. Like an earthquake, it began to tremble violently. Wu Yin and Luca, who were still in the dormitory, lost their footing and nearly fell to the ground from the trembling ground. "Ah!" Luca cried out again. Her petite body fell from the tremor. Fortunately, Wu Yin caught her in time and prevented her from falling. However, Luca didn't mind at all. Instead, she pointed into the distance and cried out in shock. "There!" Chapter 1376. What's wrong? What's going on? Is it an earthquake? The students in the 4 dormitories located in different directions of the academy opened their windows one by one, looking out of the window with faces full of panic. Not only the students, but the staff, teachers, and other related staff also poked their heads out of the windows of their residences. When they saw the scene outside the window, they were all stunned. Dong, 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 dong. The muffled sound was accompanied by the shaking of the ground, gradually causing chaos in the entire academy. That shocking sound was as if there was some huge, ferocious beast running on the ground, causing the empty space in front of the academy to raise a cloud of dust that covered the sky and covered the earth. Not long after, the dust dissipated. What appeared behind the smoke and dust was a terrifying army. They were naked, pitch black, and looked like they had beast-like eyeballs all over their bodies. Their eyes flashed with a wolf-like ferocious light drooling from their mouths. They looked extremely disgusting. Looking at the appearance of those dragons, I'm afraid none of the citizens of knighthood would admit that these monsters were dragons. However, judging from their appearance, they were indeed dragons. Moreover, they were like an army that had formed into groups of dragons. Groups of winged dragons with naked bodies spread their wings and soared high in the night sky, looking like earth dragons. Groups of earth dragons with their naked bodies were galloping across the open space. They looked like water dragons, but their bodies were naked. Groups of water dragons were swimming against the current of the river. Under the cover of the night, black aliens that looked very similar to pterosaurs, earth dragons, and water dragons, but their bodies were naked and shrouded in an evil aura, were charging in the direction of the academy. These ugly, pitch-black creatures that looked like pterosaurs, earth dragons, and water dragons were none other than the corpse ash dragons. Looking at their numbers, there were at least 700, 800, or even 1,000 of them. Now, such a terrifying army of corpse ash dragons. They were charging towards the academy from the sky, the land, and the river. Roar, 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 roar. In the next moment, an evil and frenzied roar sounded. Gradually, it descended under the night sky that was covered by the pitch-black swirling clouds. This caused everyone to feel a chill in their hearts. His scalp went numb. What is that? A monster. Run. In the 4 dormitory buildings, a group of students who were still waiting by the windows screamed in horror when they saw this scene. They fled from the dormitory in a panic. Hoo-ho-ho! It was an ominous roar. Corpse Ash Dragon's army finally arrived at the academy. Bam! Amidst the rumbling, the gate of the academy collapsed under the relentless assault of the earth dragon-shaped corpse dragons. Dong! Amidst the muffled sounds, the pterosaur corpse dragon army flew across the sky above the academy and started to spit out dragon breath, destroying the buildings one by one. Pong! Amidst the rumbling, the corpse dragon army burst out of the ground from the underground waterway, turning the entire academy into a pile of rubble. A ruthless roar resounded through the clouds. How can Sylvia and Luca stared blankly at the scene before them? Buildings collapsed like building blocks under the assault of the earth dragon-shaped corpse dragon army. Fiery sparks exploded under the dragon breaths of the pterosaur corpse dragon army. Inch by inch, the ground opened up like a hole as the corpse dragon army shuttled back and forth. Gray smoke and scarlet flames danced and filled the academy under the moonlight. Students, faculty, and staff, everyone in the academy was running away in a panic. Under the night sky, the buildings were gradually being destroyed by the raging flames. Dong. Boom. Bang. Muffled sounds, explosions, and explosions resounded in the academy under the night sky. Buildings collapsed one after another, raising a hazy cloud of dust. Every corner of the academy was ablaze with raging fires. Ear-piercing screams rang out incessantly. It was like hell, the academy. Sylvia's body trembled violently, flames of anger surging from her face. Rebecca's emerald eyes were also filled with anger. Clearly, the two of them were enraged. Unlike Wu Yin, Rebecca and Sylvia had spent more than a year or two in the Ansari Academy. They had more or less developed feelings for the academy. Now that they saw their academy being destroyed by a group of corpse dragons, the rage they felt was not something normal people could understand. Rune-sama. Luca hugged Wu Yin tightly. She started talking in a flustered manner. Our academy, don't worry. Wu Yin patted Luca's back while looking at the collapsing buildings in the distance. Rebecca, now is not the time to be angry. You're the president of the student council. Hurry up and organize everyone in the academy to fight back. Hearing this, Rebecca came to her senses and her expression instantly turned solemn. President, next to Wu Yan's room, Yashu and Yak peeked their heads out of the window, and they looked at Rebecca. What should we do now? Rebecca didn't even think and was about to give the order. However, her voice was immediately interrupted by a roar not inferior to the corpse dragons. Roar, 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 roar. Amidst the roars, ferocious beasts that looked like corpse-gray dragons emerged from the 6 dragon houses in the academy, one after another under the night sky. Pterosaurs flapped their wings like strange birds. The earth dragon moved its limbs like a lizard. It was a water dragon that was twisting its body like a huge snake. Finally, the dragons sleeping in the dragon house began to wake up and came out. In the next instant, the real pterosaurs, earth dragons, and water dragons clashed with the pterosaurs, earth dragons, and water dragons. The academy instantly became a battlefield between the dragons and the dead dragons. The dragons are making their move too. Lebecca's eyes lit up. Our masters are running away in panic, and it's the Falls who are fighting the enemy bravely? Wu Yin glanced at the students and teachers who were still running away and mocked himself. How ironic. Even if they're dragon cultivators, they're only in their teens. It's inevitable for them to panic in this situation. Lebecca shook her head and smiled. That's why the student council is needed. With that, she opened her arms and closed her eyes. In the name of Lebecca, in the name of Randall, I hereby command you. Present the holy knight armor you forged to me. Roar. Gyuvlin abruptly roared. Mana surged from his body, forming two magic arrays less than 10 centimeters away from each other. The magic arrays rippled and enveloped Lebecca. The magic arrays slid across Lebecca's voluptuous body. One melted her clothes into light, while the other condensed into a set of armor that looked like a tight suit. When the two magic arrays shattered, the sacred tight armor on Lebecca's body flickered with a cold and fiery light. Then, Lebecca extended her hand, and a golden magic array flew out and rotated in front of her. Appear, a demonic spear that kills in one hit. Its name is Kai Guru. Borgu, a huge black and red spear that resembled a drill, emerged from the golden formation and landed in Lebecca's hand. She suddenly grabbed it. Yak, got it. If this academy is destroyed, I'll be in trouble too. Yak closed her eyes like a meditating nun and began to chant an incantation. Helmet, neck guard, chest plate, back plate, waist plate, hip plate, skirt plate, shoulder plate, arm plate, elbow plate, forearm plate, iron gloves, thigh plate, knee plate, shin plate, iron boots, spurs. The moment the last incantation fell, a white radiance followed by a powerful magic power wrapped around Yashur's body. Yashur could feel that the star carving on his left arm was heating up, causing him unbearable pain. And when the pain reached its peak, a set of silver knight armor made of pure magic appeared on Yashur's body, making him unable to feel any weight at all. Seeing Lebecca and Yashur equipped with the holy knight armor, Sylvia clenched her teeth and gripped Lancelot's reins. Although we don't have the holy knight armor, Lancelot and I have no intention of being spectators. Roar. Lancelot roared and echoed Sylvia's words. The war had begun. Chapter 1377. Roland, Lebecca, Sylvia, and Yashur didn't immediately charge into the center of the battlefield. Instead, they looked at Wu Yin, who was still in the dormitory. Now, the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy could be said to be facing the greatest crisis in history. There was no doubt about Lebecca's strength, and Sylvia's strength had also greatly improved after obtaining speed, burst, and dance of the penetrating dragon's breath. While Yasha's paladin armor had a time limit and was merely a hastily assembled replica, at the very least, Yasha's strength definitely wouldn't be weaker than Sylvia's while the armor was still in effect. But there was a big problem with this. After all, what was happening in the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy wasn't a battle, but a war. Facing thousands of corpse ash dragons, Sylvia's burst of speed had a time limit, as did Yashur's holy knight armor. Although Lebecca had the strength of the 8th rank, on the battlefield, a single person's strength was limited. By the time the holy knight armor ran out of mana, Lebecca would be powerless to reverse the situation. Fortunately, they still had Wu Yin on their side. Whether it was Lebecca, Sylvia, Yashur, or Yak, they couldn't forget him. Not only was this ordinary-looking man the world's strongest dragon rider, he had also defeated the world's strongest Holy Sky dragon rider, Yuzura L. Sarwin's existence. If he made a move, then the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy's victory would be set in stone. Or rather, everyone was still thinking that if Wu Yin summoned that white dragon from that day, Then with the might of that white flame that instantly defeated Yuzura, the leader of Loriaman's holy dragon riders, it should be able to immediately eliminate all the corpse ash dragons in the academy, right? Although Lebecca, Sylvia, and the others didn't know how strong that white flame was. But that day in the arena, the monstrous magic that surged up to the sky. However, they could clearly feel it. With that level of mana, how could it be weak? Not to mention, Yuzura had personally admitted it. That day, Wu Yin hadn't used his full strength. Therefore, Lebecca, Sylvia, and the others were waiting for Wu Yin to make a move to resolve the disaster of the Ansari Union's Dragon Riding Academy. Unfortunately, Wu Yin only looked at the battlefield in the distance and shook his head gently. Wu Yin hadn't finished his words yet. A muffled explosion suddenly rang out, interrupting his words. Suddenly, the water dragon-shaped corpse ash dragons burst out of the ground and rushed out of the underground waterway. There were about 5 of them, and all of them had pitch-black bodies, crazed eyes, festering gums, naked bodies, and a foul stench. Saliva dripped from the corners of their mouths. The place they had charged out from was right below Lebecca and the others. Roar. Ear-piercing roars echoed through the night sky. A group of water dragon corpse ash dragons looked up with ferocious glints in their eyes. They fixed their gazes on Lebecca and Sylvia, who were riding on Guffrin and Lancelot. It's a corpse ash dragon. Lebecca and Sylvia's expressions changed. Roar. The water dragon corpse ash dragons opened their mouths and roared. Then, a dazzling flash of light accompanied by dense mana flames burst out and blasted towards Lebecca and Sylvia. Careful! The sudden attack made Lebecca and Sylvia's reactions slow by half a beat. However, Guffrin and Lancelot reacted in time. Roar! The 2 holy dragons let loose enraged roars, and a magic power surging over their bodies swelled. The hexagonal defensive barrier immediately expanded, and ripples spread out from it. Bang! The 5 water dragon corpse ash dragons' dragon breaths landed on the hexagonal defensive barrier in the blink of an eye. There was a loud explosion and scarlet sparks, but only lasted for a moment before dissipating. The 5 water dragon breaths had been easily blocked. However, that wasn't something to be happy about. This was because the 5 water dragon corpse dragons had already extended black shadows from all parts of their bodies. They swiftly and violently bypassed the hexagonal barrier erected by the 2 holy dragons like whips and arrived before Lebecca and Sylvia in the blink of an eye. Those black shadows were actually dark red tentacles. The next moment, Lebecca and Sylvia, who hadn't reacted in time, were completely entangled by the tentacles. This is... Seeing Lebecca and Sylvia completely entangled by the tentacles, Wu Yin gaped in shock. These corpse ash dragons actually knew how to play with tentacles? President Lebecca, Your Highness. Yashio was also stunned for a moment, but he quickly stretched out his hand, intending to break those tentacles, but in the end, he pounced on empty air. The slippery tentacles wrapped around Lebecca and Sylvia's limbs and slender waists. With a tug, the 2 beautiful girls were suspended in the air. Damn it, let me go. As if having a bad premonition, let alone Sylvia, even Lebecca looked rather flustered. And the facts proved that their bad premonition was indeed real. What are you trying to do? Stop. As Lebecca and Sylvia struggled with all their might, the dark red tentacles nimbly slid past their bodies and began to burrow into Lebecca's armor and Sylvia's uniform. No. Lebecca and Sylvia immediately let out coquettish gasps that made one's heart go numb. Lebecca and Sylvia got tangled up and harassed by the tentacles. Who knows what parts they shouldn't be touching under their clothes? The 2 girls blushed, and their panting became more coquettish. William was dumbfounded by what he saw. What kind of dragon is this? It was one thing to play with tentacles, but to play with such evil tentacles, how perverted must the person behind these tentacles be to create something like this? Just as Wu Yin was stunned by the surreal scene before him, a sorrowful cry rang out beside him. Yeah, no. While Wu Yin was at a loss for what to do, one of the water dragon corpse ash dragon's tentacles came into the dorm and wrapped around Luca, who was hugging Wu Yin. Luca screamed as she was dragged away. The tentacles with visible veins wrapped around Luca's limbs and dragged her out of the room through the window. She was also hung upside down in the air. Luca was crying as she struggled with all her might. However, the tentacles had already burrowed into Luca's loose pajamas. No, don't touch strange places. Not long after, Luca also let out a coquettish cry and was hung in the air with Rebecca and Sylvia. It was an extremely pleasing scene. Wu Yin was completely dumbfounded. Yashur had already been blinded by Alec the moment Rebecca and Sylvia's pajamas were burrowed into their pajamas. He was rolling on the ground and howling in pain. Rebecca endured the strange feeling in her body and turned her head with difficulty to look at Wu Yin. When she saw Wu Yin's dumbfounded expression, she was furious. Stop daydreaming. Come save us. Oh. Wu Yin regained his senses. He stepped on the windowsill and shot out of the dorm. Turning into a black shadow, he charged towards the three girls who were hung upside down in midair like he was breaking through the night. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. His figure flashed past the dark red tentacles. All the tentacles wrapped around Rebecca, Sylvia, and Luca were cut off like snakes. They fell to the ground and continued wriggling like earthworms. Carrying Rebecca, Sylvia, and Luca, Wu Yin landed firmly on the ground. He looked around at the wriggling tentacles on the ground and couldn't help but sweat. They actually have this kind of ability. These corpse dragons really can't be underestimated. Damn it. Rebecca and Sylvia's expressions darkened. Their eyes were filled with rage. Gufflin. Lancelot. Roar. A roar echoed in response to the two girls. The two divine dragons set up a magic formation. Flame-like dragon breaths shot out and instantly obliterated the 5 corpse dragons and the disgusting tentacles on the ground. Seeing the flames of rage burning in Rebecca and Sylvia's eyes, Wu Yin knew that they were thoroughly enraged. These corpse ash dragons were in trouble. Chapter 1378. Roland, make your move. This time, Rebecca didn't ask for Wu Yan's opinion. Instead, she spoke in a deep voice as if she was giving an order. Evidently, Rebecca was enraged by the fact that the student council president of the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy, a Shangtian Dragon Rider Academy, had shown such a wretched side in front of others. Sylvia was about the same. Her eyes were filled with ferocity, causing Wu Yin to feel a little resentful. However, he had no choice but to refuse Rebecca and Sylvia's request. No, go ahead. Looking at Luca, who was hiding behind him, and looking at the battlefield in the distance, Wu Yin answered her like this. I still have some matters to attend to. What time is it now? Why are you still? Sylvia was about to reprimand Wu Yin when Rebecca stopped her. Rebecca narrowed her eyes thoughtfully when she saw Wu Yin looking at Luca. She seemed to have understood something and smiled. I understand now. Then we'll go first. President. Sylvia looked at Rebecca in shock. It was a matter of life and death for the entire Ansari Dragon Academy. What could be more important than protecting the Ansari Dragon Academy? All right, just listen to Roland. Rebecca didn't answer. Instead, she called out to Guffrin and turned around. She rode on Guffrin's head again. Let's go. Guffrin. Roar. Guffalin roared in response. His body turned into a flash of red lightning and flew toward the battlefield in front of him. Wait. Sylvia quickly got on Lancelot as well. She glared at Wu Yin and Luca before grumbling. Be careful. I'm not so weak that I need someone to take care of me. Wu Yin chuckled. You should worry about yourself. Oomph. Sylvia snorted. Beside her, Corset hugged Sylvia's waist. Under Lancelot's lead, they flew towards the battlefield. How long are you going to lie there for? AI Kakikishio, who was still covering his eyes and rolling on the ground in pain. She grabbed him by the collar and dragged him towards the battlefield. Don't fall behind. That would be so embarrassing. Wait, wait. It was accompanied by Yashur's screams. AI could drag him all the way to the battlefield, leaving Wu Yin speechless. Lord Roland. Luca raised her head suspiciously when she saw Becca, Sylvia, Yak, Yashur, and the others entering the battlefield. She shifted her gaze to Wu Yin. Why did you come with me? Before Luca could ask, Wu Yin took Luca's hand. He walked in another direction. Lord Loon? Luca tilted her head. Her eyes were filled with doubt, but she didn't ask any more questions. Dong! On the flat ground, a dazzling saber light that seemed to be composed of flames was parallel to the ground, like a remnant light. In a flash, a 10-meter-long saber curtain was drawn. Like a large saber of light, it slashed through the air with a loud explosion. The earth dragon and water dragon corpse dragons that were wreaking havoc on the ground seemed to have suffered a huge impact when they came in contact with the saber light. Their decaying bodies were crushed into pieces and fell to the ground. Holding Luca in one hand and Shauna in the other, Wu Yin charged through the battlefield with a dissipating airflow. It didn't take long for them to arrive at a place. Shockingly, it was the 7th Dragon House of the Ansari Kingdom's Dragon Riding Academy. Dragon House. Luca was startled at first, but then she seemed to recall something. Her expression changed, and she cried out in surprise. Gawain! Roar! As if in response to Luca's call, a roar resounded throughout the 7th Dragon House. What followed was a pillar of dragon breath that seemed like a flame. It shot up from the 7th Dragon House and blasted open the ceiling. Gawain's average-sized body shot out from the ceiling and into the sky. Luca was overjoyed at first, but then she cried out in surprise, Gawain! This was because behind Gawain, who had rushed out of the 7th Dragon sarcophagus, there were about 10 dragon-shaped corpse ash dragons flying out from the 7th Dragon sarcophagus. They were like huge, strange birds, waving their tentacles and lashing at Gawain like whips while following behind Gawain and attacking him fiercely. Gawain tore through the air and flew through the sky above the 7th Dragon House, avoiding the tentacles that whipped at him and the pursuit of the pterosaur corpse dragons. However, it didn't take long for Gawain to slow down. If Gawain was in his peak condition, he should be able to easily deal with the 10 pterosaur corpse dragons. After all, Gawain was a holy dragon, even though he was only a young dragon. Unfortunately, Gawain had not received enough star essence for a long time. Although his body was not weak, he was not in a good condition. Under such circumstances, let alone Gawain, even Guvlin would not be able to withstand the pterosaur corpse dragon's pincer attack. Gawain's speed slowed down again and again due to his weak body. Finally, he was surrounded by the tentacles. Roar! Gawain let out an unwilling roar. Gawain! Luca's expression changed again and again until it was full of anxiety. Lord Roland. Luca grabbed Wu Yan's clothes tightly and begged, Please save Gawain. No. To Luca's surprise, not only did Wu Yan not do anything, he even lowered Shauna and rejected her coldly. I won't do anything. Wadash, Luca looked at Wu Yan in disbelief. Why? Because it's not my duty. Wu Yan met Luca's purple eyes. You should be the one saving Gawain. Me? Luca was dumbfounded. Gawain severed his star essence path to protect you and weaken his body. Otherwise, Gawain would have been able to deal with those corpse dragons in a matter of minutes. In other words, Gawain is in this state because of you. Wu Yan's voice pierced Luca's heart like a sharp arrow. As Gawain's master, shouldn't you take responsibility and save Gawain, who has been protecting you all this time? How can I save Gawain? Tears welled up in Luca's eyes. She was so anxious that she was about to break down. Without Gawain, I can't do anything. Lord Roland, I beg you, please save Gawain. You can scold me all you want after this, but Gawain, Luca. Wu Yan sighed when he saw Luca so anxious that she was about to cry. Luca, think about it. Think about everything you did with Gawain. The excitement you had when you flew in the sky with Gawain, the excitement you had when you practiced dragon riding with Gawain, the peace you had when you lived and ate with Gawain, the joy you had when you improved with Gawain. Luca, do you really want to see Gawain continue to weaken like this? This time, Wu Yan's voice drifted into Luca's ears like a breeze. She froze on the spot. Images of her time with Gawain appeared in her mind under Wu Yan's guidance. Gawain has a lot of pride. Wu Yan's gaze shot to the sky. Gawain was roaring furiously as he was entangled by 10 pterosaur corpse dragons. Wu Yan closed his eyes. Right now, because of his body, he's being entangled by 10 disgusting minions. He must be feeling terrible. If he's defeated, he might never get up again. Luca, do you want to see Gawain suffer such a blow and fall into depression? Gawain! Luca clenched her fists tightly. Her face was filled with uncertainty. Luca had to admit that everything Wu Yan said was correct. Given Gawain's personality, he would be devastated if he was defeated by a dragon like that. Right now, Gawain must be feeling terrible. This was all because of her fear of riding Gawain. Could it be that he was just going to watch Gawain be defeated and sink into depression? Could it be that he was going to continue like this until he ran out of star essence and died in depression? No, absolutely not. Roar. Gawain howled in the sky. He finally shattered the last bit of hesitation in Luca's heart. Gawain, without hesitation, without confusion, and without the fear she had in the past, Luca lifted her bare feet and ran forward. Bees. In the next instant, Luca's body burst into a dazzling torrent of light and charged into the sky. Chapter 1379. The dazzling torrent of light turned into a bridge that resembled the Milky Way, rising from the ground into the sky. Then, with a turn, it descended from the sky like a veil made of starlight, landing on Gawain's body. In an instant, Gawain's body was also dyed with starlight. It was as if he had rushed into the Milky Way. His body flickered with an extremely rich radiance. The torrent of light formed from starlight melted into Gawain's body at a speed visible to the naked eye. Along with it, Gawain's aura grew stronger and stronger. Gawain was gradually recovering to his peak state. Looking at the dazzling torrent of light that resembled the Milky Way, Wu Yan's eyes lit up. It's star essence. Yes, the composition of the Milky Way torrent of light was the essential energy that maintained the life of this planet. Star essence. Now, a huge amount of star essence was replenishing Gawain's body that was extremely lacking in life energy. It was allowing him to gradually recover to his peak state. This also proved that Luca and Gawain's star essence path. It had been re-established. Before long, the torrent of light formed by star essence finally subsided. It turned into specks of starlight and dissipated into the sky. Roar! Gawain abruptly opened his eyes and let out a roar filled with extreme excitement. His voice was like a sound wave, and with a tremor, it shattered the surrounding tentacles that were wrapping around him. They fell to the ground. Roar! As if to celebrate his recovery, Gawain roared excitedly. A surge of magic power surged from his body. Following his roar, it condensed into a rotating magic formation that extended forward. Bang! A dazzling stream of magic power that resembled a pillar of light was mixed with a flaming dragon's breath. Like a meteor, it streaked across the night sky and landed on the 10 pterosaur corpse dragons that couldn't react in time. A ball of fire exploded in the sky. Then, the corpse dragon's flesh scattered from the sky like dust, becoming insignificant specks of dust in the vast land. Roar! Gawain's voice was full of joy. He circled around and landed on the ground. Luca was sitting on top of Gawain's body without anyone noticing. Lord Roar! Luca's face bloomed with a smile that even the night sky couldn't reach. It was as if she had become the only light in this world that had lost all light due to the dark clouds. She was also extremely beautiful, like a fairy sent down from the heavens. Well done, Luca. Seeing Luca's smile, Wu Yan couldn't help but smile. He weighs faces Luca. Wu Yan rubbed Gawain's neck as he looked at him from afar. Wait, Luca, you should be satisfied now. Roar! Gawain let out a low roar. There was joy and gratitude in his roar. Gawain knew that without this person's help, Luca wouldn't have been able to overcome the fear in her heart and accept him again, not to mention the problem of whether he could survive or not. Now that the celestial veins were once again connected, Luca's rider consciousness had also fused with Gawain's. Gawain could clearly sense the trauma in Luca's heart. It couldn't be said that it had been completely overshadowed by Luca's strong emotions. Luca Gawain, way Gawain, way Gawain, way. No matter how you look at it, this has to do with Wu Yin. Gawain's heart was filled with joy and gratitude. If you really want to thank me, then don't cause any more trouble. Seeing the gratitude in Gawain's eyes, Wu Yin smiled. I can't take any more of your torment. Both Luca and Gawain lowered their heads in embarrassment. Wu Yin was amused. Lord Roar. Luca suppressed the joy in her heart from reuniting with Gawain. Her eyes were filled with determination. I want to join the battle. Join the battle? Wu Yin paused and looked towards the center of the academy. That's right, the corpse dragon isn't completely dealt with yet. Lord Roar. Luca suddenly spoke. There's something I'd like to ask of you. Another request? Wu Yin crossed his arms curiously. Then, we won't be spending the night together this time, right? Luca blushed and shyly shook her head. No, I want Lord Roar to ride Gawain with me. Ride Gawain together? Wu Yin gasped. Huh, yes. Luca's clear eyes revealed a strong will. I want to challenge the dragon dance again and calm this chaos, but I can't guarantee that I won't be afraid. You mean? Wu Yin's tone was uncertain. You won't be afraid with me around? Lord Roar, if it's Lord Roar. Luca closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, her expression was firm. With Lord Roar by my side, I think I can. Wu Yin scratched his cheeks, and he helplessly grinned at Luca. I really don't know what to do with you. Wu Yin jumped onto Gawain's back and sat behind Luca. He reached out and hugged Luca's waist. Now, you won't be afraid anymore, right? Wu Yin whispered into Luca's sharp, elf-like ears. Just give it your all. I will hug you. I will never let go. Okay. Luca felt the warmth on her back and the whispers in her ear. She nodded firmly. Gawain, roar. Using a roar as a response, Gawain raised his head to the sky and let out a long howl. Magic power surged from his body and soared into the sky. The wind whistled in her ears. Luca gripped the reins tightly and looked forward. She looked back and saw the smiling Wu Yin. Luca was a bit absent-minded. Lord Roar, Can you hold me tighter? Like this? Tighter, like this? Tighter. Wu Yin bitterly smiled. As if he wanted to melt Luca into his body, he tightened his grip around Luca's slender waist. Then, how about this? Whoosh! At the same time, Gawain increased his speed to the maximum. Like a white meteor, he streaked across the sky. A powerful centrifugal force began to take effect. If it were anyone else, this speed would be enough to make them lose consciousness and cause them to become anemic and dizzy. If they weren't careful, they would have been thrown off. However, there's still a gap between this speed and speed burst. Wu Yin was able to ride Lancelot, even under speed burst. His expression didn't change at all, let alone on Gawain's back. He hugged Luca tightly and stared at her. Under Wu Yin's gaze, Luca's body began to emit star-like light. Gawain's body also began to emit a gentle light. Following his flight path, he left a trail of light in the night sky. Gawain was drawing in the night sky. He was drawing as if he was dancing. Moreover, the pattern Gawain was drawing was an extremely complicated geometric magic formation. It wasn't until the huge geometric magic formation was completed that the full appearance of the pattern was exposed to the night sky. It was a circle with a shape like a dragon's head in the center. It was at least 100 meters in diameter. It was very strange. It was a star carving. The star carving that blotted out the sky was reflected in the pitch-black night sky. It emitted a gentle halo. A vast amount of magic power fluctuated from it and turned into ripples that reverberated in the air. Luca suddenly opened her eyes. Dragon Rider Dance. First dance, purifying honey rain. Once the Dragon Rider Dance was completed, all kinds of magic effects could be activated. At this moment, the night sky of the Ansari Academy blossomed with dazzling light. In the sky, a meteor-like rain of light suddenly fell from the sky, landing on the entire Ansari Dragon Riding Academy. Bathed in the rain of light, the corpse dragons didn't even have time to make a sound before their bodies exploded into powder and covered the ground. The powder was the ashes of the original dragons. In less than a second, the hundreds and thousands of corpse ash dragons, which gave everyone a headache, were all turned into ashes and disappeared from the world. Luca held Gawain's reins and leaned into the warm embrace behind her. Her purple eyes were filled with dazzling splendor. Chapter 1380. Did I fail again? On the top floor of the Templar Bell Tower, Mikosis looked at the disappearing dark clouds and the geometric pattern that resembled a star carving in the sky. His eyes were gloomy. Below him, the buildings of the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy were still burning and smoking. Debris was scattered all over the place, and the ground was full of potholes. It was a complete mess. It could be said that if Mikavez's goal was to destroy the Ansari Kingdom's Dragon Rider Academy, then even though he couldn't say that he had achieved his goal, it wouldn't be considered a failure to destroy the academy to such an extent. However, Mikavez's true goal wasn't to destroy the Ansari Academy. He wasn't interested in destroying the Ansari Academy. The reason he had the corpse dragon attack the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy was to take a look at the white flame dragon. Why would he go through so much trouble to attack the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy just to take a look at the white dragon burning flame? It might not be worth it to others, but to Mikosis, it was very important. This was because Mikoski was still unwilling to believe that there was actually a dragon in this world. A dragon that could strike fear into his heart with just an impression. He wanted to prove if there was a dragon in this world that could strike fear into his heart. Attacking the Ansari Union's Dragon Riding Academy was definitely worth it for Mikawas. After all, Mikosis' true identity was still, "It really is you, Mikosis." While Mikosis was immersed in his own imagination, a voice that he had only heard once but would never forget rang out. It echoed throughout the bell tower. Mikosis' pupils shrunk. Lord Mikotas. Anya was also shocked. She turned around and pulled out a dagger, standing in front of Mikotas to protect him. Both of them looked into the bell tower at the same time. Soon after, a few figures entered their field of vision. Wu Yen, Lebeka, Sylvia, Luca, Yashur, Yak, the 6 strongest members of the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy. At the same time, he appeared in front of Mikawas and Anya in the bell tower of the sanctuary. "You?" A trace of shock appeared in Anya's eyes. Why? Why are you here, right?" Lebeka was wearing a slightly charred paladin armor. She focused her gaze on Mikawas and Anya like a chain. "Could it be? Do you think you're hiding well?" "You?" Ania's gaze turned ferocious. She seemed to want to say something, but Mikaves held her shoulder and stopped her. "Although I don't think we're very good at hiding, if we can, I hope you can give us an answer." Yashur stared at Mikawas and answered his question. "It was Luca who discovered you." "Luca?" Mikaves narrowed his eyes. She shifted her gaze and cast it on Luca. "I see. Are you from Yekablad?" "Yes." Luca nodded in response. "I'm from Yekablad. I was born with a certain ability to sense nature. Although I didn't discover you at first." Luca turned her gaze to Mikawa's side and pointed her finger forward. "But I discovered that it was emitting an ominous magic power." In the direction that Luca was pointing at, there was a giant sword that was emitting a dark, swampy, and viscous magical energy. It was stuck in the ground. It was the giant sword that awakened the corpse dragon. "You're Mikawa's, right?" Sylvia stepped forward and clenched her fists. Her icy blue eyes were filled with anger. "Last time, you had the corpse dragon attack Ansari. This time, you almost destroyed the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy. I swear I won't let an evil existence like you do as you please." "Oh." Mikawas raised an eyebrow and let out an evil laugh. As expected of the 4th princess of the royal family of knights. Even if you're just a student, you're still a dragon knight. But that's not strange. After all, even Veronica, who's known as the Iron Valkyrie, didn't get fall and become a dragon breeder, but you did. If you're not at this level, then I'm very disappointed. What are you talking about? Sylvia suddenly had an indescribable feeling that something was wrong as she listened to the familiar words of the royal family of knights that came out of Mikavez's mouth. It's like this person in front of her is familiar to her as well. But how is that possible? Seeing that Sylvia was shaken, Makawos turned his head away without saying a word and looked at Yak, who had been silent all this while. His eyes shone with an evil gleam that had never been seen before. I finally meet you, descendant of the royal family of Avalon. Royal family of Avalon? They heard it from Wu Yin before. This time, it came from Makawos' mouth. Lebecca and Sylvia were stunned. Avalon. Yashur had a confused look on his face. Who are you? On the other hand, Yak was on guard as she stared intently at Mikawosi. What's the royal family of Avalon? You still don't know? Makawos glanced at Yashur in surprise. Looks like you don't qualify as a knight. You're just a brat? You? Yashur was furious. I've always been curious. How do you know so much? Wu Yin suddenly spoke. Even the descendant of the royal family of Avalon knows about it. You, a citizen of the Empire, know more about the dragons than the knights. What is your true identity? Rune? Randall, you're even more surprising than I thought. Since you don't know, I'll tell you. Makawos looked at Wu Yin with a different gaze. In ancient times, the origin of the dragons, the sage dragon King Embark, disappeared. However, his bloodline was left behind and split into two major branches. Makawos pointed at Yak. One of the bloodlines is the Avalon Holy Dragon royal family, which is the little brat beside you. Yak, Lebecca, Sylvia, Luca, and Yashur looked at Yak in surprise. Me? Yak was at a loss. And then? Wing kept his gaze on Makawos. What about the other bloodline? The other bloodline is the one that has been enemies with the royal family of Avalon for generations. Makawos' tone became distant. The Nihilenia Underworld Dragon King family. The Nihilenia Underworld. Lebecca and the others muttered. The Nihilenia Underworld Dragon King family. Wu Yin frowned. Avalon's Holy Dragon royal family and Nihilenia Abyssal Dragon Wong family are the royal families of the dragon race. They're also the dragons with the highest level of bloodline and the strongest power in the dragon race. Mikano's gaze turned sharp as he looked at Wu Yin. That's why I'm curious as well. Rune, Randall, what kind of existence is that white dragon of yours? Its power is already enough to rival the complete form of the Avalon Holy Dragon royal family and the Nihilenia Underworld Dragon royal family after their bloodlines have been awakened. Makawos' face under the mask was already tense. Tell me, what is it? The entire Templar Bell Tower suddenly became quiet. You want to know? Wu Yin chuckled under everyone's watchful eyes. Then, how about we exchange questions? Exchange? Yes, exchange. Wu Yin walked past everyone and stood in front of Makawos. Tell me who you are, and I'll tell you what my fall is. How about it? Fair, right? It was Makawos' turn to be silent. Forget it. After a long while, Makawos took a deep breath. I'll figure out one day. Let's end it here for today. Makawos. Lebecca and Sylvia immediately barked coldly. Tried to escape? Wu Yan's gaze turned cold. Do you think I'll let you escape again? Calm down, Rune Randall. Makawos brought Anya to the edge of the bell tower's railing. After a while, there will be an even bigger feast. At that time, let's decide the victor. Leaving this sentence, Makawos and Anya jumped down from the clock tower without hesitation. Stop! Lebecca, Sylvia, and the others were shocked. They wanted to rush over, but Wu Yin stopped them with a wave of his hand. Looking at the edge of the bell tower, Wu Yan's wine-red eyes flashed with a pensive light. An even bigger feast? Chapter 1381. That's terrible. When Wu Yin returned to the Ansari Dragon Academy, he took note of the current state of the academy. Only then did he realize how much damage Mikao's corpse dragon army did to the academy. Buildings that were supposed to have a long history were completely reduced to rubble and sawdust, scattering on the ground like garbage. The buildings that were lucky enough to escape being completely destroyed were all charred black like charcoal, with wisps of smoke rising from them from time to time, proving the scale of the fire that burned them last night. The ground was full of potholes and holes so deep that one could see the sewers everywhere. They were caused by the water dragon, corpse dragons breaking out from the sewers. Some of the flat ground was broken as a result of the earth dragon corpse dragons mercilessly stepping on it. The Dragon Cultivation Academy, that was originally one of the best in the Night Kingdom of Loriaman, had now fallen into a state of near destruction. Fortunately, not all buildings were mercilessly destroyed. There were still some that managed to escape the destruction of the war, so the Ansari Academy, with a long history, did not need to be rebuilt. However, if they wanted to restore the academy to its original state, it would take a long time for them to return to their original state and be able to attend classes normally. Standing at the entrance of the Ansari Academy, Yin, Lebecca, Sylvia, Luca, Yak, and Yashur could clearly see the students and teachers who were injured in the war last night being carried on as stretchers and sent to the hospital in Ansari in an orderly manner. Those who were not seriously injured were more or less wrapped in bandages as they ran back and forth in the academy. This scene, it made the hearts of those who saw it heavy. Their mood was unprecedentedly low. Fortunately, even though there were many wounded, the attack of the corpse gray dragon did not bring any real casualties to the Ansari Dragon Academy. Until now, not a single person was found dead. Even the list of dead dragons did not appear on the list. This result, it could only be described as a miracle. Of course, the miracle was all thanks to Lebecca, who calmly organized the resistance as the president of the student council. She calmed down the panicked students and teachers and joined hands with Fall to resist the corpse dragons. This reduced the number of unnecessary casualties. Sylvia and Yashur also served as the frontline combatants and tanked most of the firepower from the corpse dragons. It could be said that more than 30% of the corpse dragons that were slaughtered last night were killed by Sylvia's penetrating dragon breath and Yashur's intrinsic device. In the end, Luca used the first dance of the dragon dance, the purifying honey rain, to purify all the remaining corpse ash dragons into ashes. It allowed the Ansari Academy, which was reduced to a cruel battlefield, to escape the fate of destruction. It also allowed the students and teachers to avoid the path of death. In other words, in the battle against the corpse dragons last night, if Lebecca, Sylvia, Luca, Yak, and Yashur were not there, even if there were no casualties miraculously, the Ansari Academy would not have been able to escape the fate of destruction. In this battle, the student council stole the limelight and became the heroes that saved the Ansari Academy. On the other hand, Wu Yin, the most powerful dragon rider that everyone had their eyes on, did not achieve much in the battle. No one even saw his whereabouts, which made people suspicious. If it was someone else, the students and teachers might start to suspect that the person had escaped from the battlefield, or was the helper, or even the culprit behind the corpse dragon's attack. However, if it was Wu Yin, the people might be suspicious, but they would not really believe it. After all, with Wu Yin's strength, there was no need for him to escape from the battlefield. As for him being the helper or the culprit behind the corpse dragon's attack, that was even more ridiculous. With Lebecca, the student council president, vouching for him, who would think so? In short, it was a fact that the academy needed to be rebuilt. The injured had to be sent to the hospital. The students and teachers who lost their homes had to find a place to stay. The attack of the corpse dragons also had to be reported to the Knighthood Kingdom. All of this required the student council to do personally. The coming days were going to be very busy. Ansari State Dragon Riding Academy, Student Union Office Huff, panting with exhaustion. The 6 of them sat around a round table used for meetings. They started to relax after a sleepless night and working for the academy for half a day. Everyone, please have a cup of tea and recover your energy. Cosette pushed a dining cart filled with tea sets in. She had a gentle smile on her face as she brewed a cup of black tea for everyone. This was another form of timely help. Ugh, I'm alive. Yashur drank the black tea like it was water to quench his thirst. He heaved a sigh of relief before sighing again. I didn't expect the academy to be destroyed to this extent. The student council office is really lucky to be intact. It's all because of that guy called Micavez. AI shouted angrily. Who is that guy? It's so annoying. Hearing AI Ku's words, everyone present fell silent for a moment and raised their eyebrows. Makawo's, huh? Lebecca crossed her arms as if she was deep in thought. Is that guy really from the Empire? Why is he so familiar with the dragons of a knighthood kingdom? Also, he said Yak is the last descendant of the Avalon Holy Dragon royal family. Yashur looked at Yak, who was gritting her teeth in disbelief. Based on what Mikhaos said, isn't Yak the Dragon royal family's princess? I don't know what's going on, but do you have any objections? AI Ku raised her head with an arrogant look on her face. I am such a powerful dragon. Are you convinced now? No. Yashur subconsciously shook his head. Rather than saying I'm convinced, it's more like I can't believe it. How can a girl like you who likes to laze in bed, gluttonous, irritable, and even pee in her sleep be a dragon? Bang! PFFF. Before Yashur could finish his words, he was sent flying by a red-faced Yak. I'm sorry, I'm a girl who likes to laze in bed, gluttonous, and irritable. Yak's eyes flashed fiercely. She stomped on the ground and walked up to Yashur, who was rolling on the ground while holding his stomach. She grabbed him by the neck and shook him. A watchdog like you dares to look down on me? See if I don't stomp you flat. What you're doing right now has nothing to do with stomping flat with one foot. Shut up. Do you want to die again? Already. Dying. Everyone sighed when they saw Yashur's eyes rolling back as Yak grabbed him by the neck. But this explains why Yak is able to create a replica of the Holy Knight armor, even though she's only been born for less than 3 months. Lebecca tilted her head. Since she's the Dragon Royal family's princess, it's not surprising that she has this ability, right? AI Ku immediately beamed with joy and let go of Yasha's neck, allowing Yashu to finally catch his breath and gasp for air like a dog. Lord Royan. Luca turned to Wu Yin, who was deep in thought, and tugged at his sleeve. What's wrong? Lebecca and the others turned to Wu Yin. Is there anything I need to pay attention to? Well, you can say that. Wu Yin waved his hand perfunctorily, much to everyone's dissatisfaction. Speaking of which, you didn't seem surprised when Mikhaos mentioned that Yak is a descendant of the Holy Dragon royal family of Avalon. Lebecca asked curiously, did you already know that Yak is the Dragon royal family's princess? Didn't you ask us about the Holy Dragon royal family of Avalon a while ago? I just found out about it not long ago. That's why I wasn't surprised when Mikhaos mentioned the Holy Dragon royal family of Avalon. However, I didn't expect there to be a Nihilenia Abyssal Dragon royal family. I didn't know about that at all. Wu Yin rubbed his forehead in distress. He turned to Yashur. But Yashur, you have to be careful. Me? Yashur was stunned. Chapter 1382. Pay attention. Pay attention to what? Lebecca, Luca, Yashur, Yak, and the others all looked at each other in confusion. They clearly didn't know what Wu Yin meant. You guys. Wu Yin laughed bitterly. Don't tell me you didn't hear what Micah said? Looking at Yashur, Wu Yin's gaze turned serious. If what Micavez said is true, then the Neha Abyssal Dragon royal family and the Elvelyn Holy Dragon royal family have been fighting each other for generations. Sooner or later, the other party will find Yak, the last descendant of the Elvelyn Holy Dragon royal family, and engage in a cruel battle where either you die or I live. Yashio, if you continue to be so sloppy, I'm afraid that when Yak is killed by someone, you will still be in the dark. Yashur's pupils suddenly contracted. A chill surged from the depths of his heart and filled his entire body in an instant. Yashur felt as if he was in an ice cellar. His entire body was cold. Only now did Yashur realize what kind of danger he was about to face. He also realized that he had neglected something important. I am not afraid, Yak said, but her pretty face was slightly pale. Whether or not she was the last descendant of the Elvelyn Holy Dragon royal family, Yak was only born for less than 3 months. She was still a young dragon. She had to face the threat of death at this age. It was impossible for Yak not to be afraid. She was only putting up a strong front. Rune is right. Yeah, sure. You have to be careful. Lebecca seemed to have realized the severity of the situation, and her expression turned serious. Judging from Akker's powerful magic power to create a replica of the Holy Knight armor when it was still a young dragon, if the Nihilinia Underworld Dragon Royal family, who had been enemies with the Avalon Holy Dragon Royal family for generations, were to reach adulthood, then how powerful can it be? Just thinking about it is terrifying. The more she spoke, the more serious her expression became. Yashio, you have to be careful and protect Yakwell. I understand. Ishio nodded solemnly with a heavy expression on his face. No matter what, I won't let anything happen to Yak. I'm not so weak that I need someone to protect me. AI coldly snorted. Don't turn your head. Don't forget, without my Holy Knight armor, you are just an ordinary person. How are you going to protect me? Yes. Yashua replied helplessly. Apart from this problem, Wu Yin frowned. There's another thing that I'm very concerned about. Another thing? Lebecca and the others couldn't help but look at Wu Yin again. Did you all forget what Mikviz said before he escaped? Wu Yin narrowed his eyes. Wait a little longer. There will be an even greater feast. Hearing this, everyone finally remembered this matter, and their faces all changed. What is Mikviz trying to do now? Yashur clenched his fists, his eyes filled with anger. Isn't destroying the academy enough? How am I supposed to know? Wu Yin shrugged. If I didn't want to know what this greater feast is, I would have let him go. Do you think I would let him go? That doesn't make sense. Lebecca objected to the idea. We should have captured him and forced him to tell us the reason. Do you think he's the type to tell us the truth? Wu Yin knocked on the table. Besides, Mikhail's is from the Empire. This so-called greater feast is most likely not just his personal operation. It's very likely that the Sepharo's Empire is carrying it out. If we capture him, there's only a possibility that we won't be able to obtain any clues about the subsequent events. When something really happens, it'll be terrible. That's true. Lebecca frowned bitterly. But now that Mikviz has escaped, how are we going to find clues? Well, at the very least, Mikviz has been exposed. The clues will be more or less exposed. Wu Yin shook his head. Finding these clues is the mission of the Knights. We're still students. Let's focus on the Academy's reconstruction. That's true. Lebecca sighed. I will report this matter to the Knights' royal family and let them decide. That's good enough. Wu Yin grinned, and he turned around abruptly. There, Sylvia had a gloomy expression on her face, and her icy blue eyes were filled with uncertainty. And then, Wu Yin looked at Sylvia with an ingenious change of topic. What's wrong? However, Sylvia's expression remained gloomy even after Wu Yan's words. She stared at the table as if she didn't hear what Wu Yin said at all. The atmosphere in the student council office changed into a heavy one. Wu Yin frowned. Lebecca, Luca, Yak, Yasho, and the others exchanged glances as well. Your Highness. Cosette also noticed that something was wrong. He reached out his hand and shook Sylvia. Your Highness. Your Highness. Up, Sylvia exclaimed and came back to her senses. What's wrong? We should be the ones asking you that, right? Wu Yin tilted his head in confusion. You've been like this ever since you came back from the Templar Bell Tower. You haven't said a word, and you're always absent-minded. Not only are your actions strange, they don't seem like the usual Sylvia, who takes everything seriously. What's wrong? Sylvia looked around at the student council members who were looking at her and lowered her head. There's something I really care about. Something you care about? Lebecca repeated her words. What do you mean? Sylvia opened her mouth, but immediately closed it again. She hesitated for a moment before shaking her head. No, it's nothing. Hearing this, everyone present frowned. Nothing? How could it be nothing when she's acting like this? Your Highness. Yashur wanted to say something, but Wu Yin shook his head. Seeing this, Yashio couldn't say anything and could only sit down obediently. Since that's the case, let's talk about something else. Lebecca stood up and changed the topic. The report on the Academy's damage has just been sent over. Lebecca picked up a report from the table. According to the statistics of the damage, fortunately, only one of the 4 student dormitories was damaged. I'm afraid it's not habitable anymore. Lebecca's gaze shifted to Wu Yin and Yashur. They had a bad feeling about this. Only one. Yashur couldn't help but gulp as he asked in a trembling voice. This dormitory, could it be that's right? Lebecca shrugged. It's Apollo dormitory. As expected, Yashur was dazed. In other words, Wu Yin sighed. We don't have a place to stay, right? You can't say that. There are a few old dormitories in the academy that survived. We've decided to temporarily let the boys of Apollo dormitory live there. However, due to the limited conditions, it's more like a refuge. Lebecca smiled mischievously. So, if you two can't find another place to stay, you'll have a miserable time. How? How can this be? Yashur looked like he'd suffered a blow. What about me? What about me? Yak was anxious. I'm also staying in Apollo dormitory. Are you going to let me stay in a refuge? I won't agree. Yak, you can stay in my room for now. Lebecca gave Yak a reassuring look. My place isn't big, but it shouldn't be a problem for you. If you agree, you can stay with me for now. I agree. Yak nodded without hesitation and abandoned her master. I just found out I'm the dragon princess. I don't want to stay in a refuge. Yak, Yashur shrugged and looked at Wu Yin. Hey, Rune, do we have to stay in a refuge? Who knows? Wu Yin rolled his eyes at Yashur. Let's take it one step at a time. Chapter 1383. Now, where should we go? Well, who knows? Wu Yin and Yasha looked at the busy students and staff running back and forth. They also looked at the messy campus and the potholes on the ground. They couldn't help but feel a sense of desolation in their hearts. Of the two of them, one had defeated the world's strongest Saint Sky Dragon Knight and was currently the strongest existence in the world. Although the other was only a dabbler, he was a true Saint Sky Dragon Knight for a limited period of time after equipping the Holy Knight armor. His status was comparable to that of a noble, but at this moment, he was even more destitute than the average commoner. They couldn't even find a place to stay. Who could be more miserable than them? Of course, Wu Yin and Yashur could choose to stay in the old school, but Lebecca said that life there was comparable to a shelter. Wu Yin didn't want to live there, although Yashur didn't care too much about it. And he could accept living in a shelter, he still wanted to see if there was a better place before he was completely driven to a dead end. No matter what, only students who had advanced to the advanced class had the right to live alone in a room. The students in the basic class all shared a room with 3 people. When he was still in the basic class, Yashio had already wanted to live in a single room. In the end, after a few days, Yak popped out. Yak even took his bed. The living conditions in the old school must be even worse. If possible, Yashur didn't want to live such a hard life anymore. At the very least, he should struggle before he resigned himself to his fate. Fortunately, he had Wu Yin to accompany him. Otherwise, Yashur would have agreed to stay in the old school long ago. Looks like we can't stay in the academy anymore. Wu Yin rubbed his forehead and glanced at Yashur. Anyway, in this situation, the academy won't be able to hold classes for long. You won't be able to attend classes in the academy for the time being. Why don't you make a trip home? My home is far away. I'm afraid the car ride will last until the academy is rebuilt, unless a holy dragon is willing to take me back. Yashur lowered his head in distress. So I can't go home. What do you plan to do if I go home? It's the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy that was attacked, not Ansari City. It's not like I don't have money. Wu Yin waved his hand. At most, I'll go out and find a hotel and stay for a while. Hotel? Yashur's eyes widened. It will take at least 3 months for the academy and Apollo's abode to be completely rebuilt. Even with the help of the Dragon Chi magnificent crystals, it would still take a month. Staying in a hotel for a month would cost a lot. Luoong, are you sure you have the money? Wu Yin pursed his lips. Without saying a word, he took out a pouch. He threw it onto Yasha's body. Yashio hurriedly reached out and caught it. He glanced at Wu Yin in confusion before opening the bag in his hand. When Yashio saw the contents of the bag, he almost threw it out. Glittering gold. It was truly dazzling. The bag was filled to the brim with gold coins. From the looks of it, there were at least 20 to 30 gold coins. According to the gold price of this world, 20 to 30 gold coins was enough to buy a small hotel, let alone stay in a hotel for a month. Yoshio's hands began to tremble as he held the bag. For a commoner like Yoshio, the bag in his hand was heavier than anything he had ever held in his life. Gulp! Yoshio couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. His voice echoed clearly in the surroundings. I say, aren't you a little too useless? Wu Yin looked at Yoshio with disdain. You're a dragon rider. Even though you're just a dabbler, you're still acting so pitifully for 20 to 30 gold coins. Be careful. Sylvia might get angry if she sees you like this. Yoshio shrunk his neck in fear. Indeed, with Sylvia's yearning for holy dragon knights, she was already displeased with a half-baked existence like himself. If he were to perform so unbearably, with Sylvia's rigid personality and identity, it was possible that she would not be able to tolerate it and would directly curse him out loud. It wasn't Yoshio's fault, though. He was just a commoner from a village. I don't even know if I can earn that much money in my lifetime. Yoshio retorted. Besides, I didn't know you were so rich. Rich? Wu Yin chuckled and turned his head away. These 20 to 30 gold coins were nothing compared to the hundreds of billions of gold coins in the Ring of Gold, which could be piled up into dozens of mountains. However, no matter the world, gold is a hard currency. This is something Wu Yin has experienced firsthand. Are you coming too? Wu Yin asked Yoshio. How about we stay in a hotel together? Me? Yoshio was stunned for a moment before he quickly shook his head. No. We'll have to stay here for at least a month. I don't have that much money. I'm the one who invited you. Of course I won't let you pay for it. Wu Yin was speechless. Yoshio shook his head anyway. That's even more out of the question. How can I accept your help to pay for a month's hotel accommodation? Aren't you a little too restrained? Wu Yin glanced at Yoshio with an amused look. To me, this amount of money is nothing. That's not enough. Yoshio refused. Then what are you going to do? Wu Yin clicked his tongue. You're not going to stay in a shelter, are you? If there's no other way, Yoshio sighed. That's the only way. Wu Yin was speechless. A petite figure ran over from afar, as if looking for something. When she saw Wu Yin standing beside Yoshio, her eyes lit up and she ran over. Master Roland. Wu Yin was about to drag Yoshio into the hotel when he looked at the source of the voice. Then he gasped in surprise. Luca? Master Roland? Luca ran all the way to Wu Yin. She crouched down and placed her hands on her knees while panting. Why are you in such a hurry? Wu Yin walked to Luca's side and patted her on the back. Luca's heart warmed up by this. Master Roland is really gentle. After catching her breath, Luca started fidgeting. She looked at Wu Yin with a hopeful look. Master Roland, have you found a place to stay? Not yet. Wu Yin felt a little helpless. I'm going to find a hotel with Yoshio. How can that be? Without waiting for Yoshio to correct her, Luca raised her voice and shook her head with a resolute expression. How can I let Master Roland live in a hotel? At the side, Yasha laughed in embarrassment. Unfortunately, I can't afford to live in that kind of place. What else can I do? Wu Yin ignored Yoshio's grumbling and scratched his face. Do you want me to live in the old school? Of course that won't do. Luca immediately objected. Soon after, her pretty face turned red and her determined eyes turned into hope. If Master Roland doesn't mind, I can offer my room to Master Roland. Wah! Yoshio was shocked. Stay in your room? Wu Yin blinked as well. He looked at Luca's pretty face that is filled with hope and doubt. What about you? Me? Luca lowered her head. She was a little shy and nervous at the same time. Of course. I'm going to serve Master Roland, huh? This time, it was Wu Yin's turn to be shocked. The bag full of gold coins in Yashu's hand also fell to the ground, and a flabbergasted expression hung on his face. Serve him? Did I hear wrong? Rune-sama also invited me to your room to spend the night. I am just being polite. Luca clenched her fists. She looked at Wu Yin with a pitiful look in her purple eyes. Can't I? Can I? Well, it's not that you can't. Wu Yin looked away and didn't want to see Luca's pitiful expression. But won't it be inconvenient for you? No, of course not. Luca answered without hesitation. I'm living alone. There's nothing inconvenient about it. Living alone? That's dangerous, isn't it? Wu Yan's lips twitched. He couldn't even retort. Yashio was also stunned. Chapter 1384. Ansari Dragon Academy. At this time, the noise of the Ansari Dragon Academy that had been noisy for the whole day gradually quieted down. Everyone began to return to their own residences as the night deepened. They were ready to have a good night's rest and wait until tomorrow to continue the reconstruction of the Ansari Dragon Academy. Lebecca and the other members of the student council organized everything in an orderly manner. Even though the Ansari Dragon Academy had been attacked by the Corpse Grey Dragon Army last night, the students and staff had recovered from the nightmare. They adjusted their mentality and returned to normal. Because of this, the rebuilding of the Ansari Dragon Academy had students who were not supposed to be involved in it. They came to help and sped up the process a lot. After all, the students of the Ansari Dragon Academy were all dragon cultivators. Other than the first-year students who had just entered the academy, the rest of the students had their own fall. With the help of the dragons, it was hard not to speed up the process. In addition to the assistance of the Dragon Chi crystal that allowed people to use dragon magic, it only took one day for the rubble and wood shavings on the ground of the Ansari Kingdom's Dragon Riding Academy to be cleared away. The burnt buildings were also demolished and rebuilt. The potholes on the ground were almost repaired. Even the building materials needed for the reconstruction were moved into the academy. It could be said that everything was ready. The only thing left was to rebuild. It seemed like the real rebuilding work would begin tomorrow morning. However, because of the Corpse Grey Dragon Army's attack on the Ansari Dragon Academy last night, no one in the Ansari Dragon Academy had slept the whole night. Therefore, before that, they had to have a good night's rest. Therefore, when night fell, the noise in the Ansari Dragon Academy was almost gone. Other than the destroyed Apollo's dorm, the lights in the other 3 dorms were turned off early. Long, drawn-out breaths could be heard. Meanwhile, in the open space of the academy, the dragons were sprawled on the ground, deep in slumber. It couldn't be helped. When the Corpse Grey Dragon Army invaded, the dragons in the Ansari Dragon Academy were awakened and realized the situation was bad. The group of dragons also rushed out of the dragon house. The dragon house had been damaged to a certain extent by the collective charge, not to mention the corpse ash dragon's attack from behind. Even the ceiling of the 7th dragon house, which was specially provided for holy dragons, had been blasted apart by Gawain's dragon breath. The other 6 dragon houses naturally didn't fare any better. With the 7 dragon houses destroyed, the dragons could only sleep on the empty grounds of the academy. And in Maeve Cottage, the light in one of the rooms was still on. Below the window of the room, Gawain was lying on his stomach, fast asleep. This room was naturally Luca's room, in a room that looked like a small forest. Luca, in her nightgown, was grinding some herbs. He was even humming a rare song. Obviously, he was in a very good mood. Tonight, or rather, until the Apollo cottage was rebuilt, Wu Yin might have to stay in this room and live under the same roof as Luca. Because of this, Yeshu had no companions and no longer had the mood to look for a new place to stay. When Wu Yin decided to stay in Luca's room, he planned to go to the old academy and live like a refuge. However, Wu Yin dragged him out of the academy and to the city to look for a hotel. He couldn't just ignore his gay friend. No, his friend after receiving an invitation from a girl, right? If that's the case, even Wu Yin would feel embarrassed. Therefore, regardless of whether Yashu was willing or not, Wu Yin dragged him out to look for a hotel. After all, as long as he threw money at him, with Yashu's commoner personality, he would have to accept it even if he didn't want to. Therefore, Wu Yin told Luca to come back first. After helping Yashu find a hotel, he would come back to find Luca. Thus, Luca had some time to prepare. She divided the herbs in her hand into 2 portions. She put one portion into a teapot and poured hot water over it so that it would suffocate on its own. The other portion was placed into an incense burner and laid flat on the ground. Luca picked up the teapot and carefully shook it. Then, she placed it by her feet and took out a sparkling and translucent gem from her bosom. That was the Dragon Chi magnificent crystal. Luca raised the Dragon Glory crystal in her hand and chanted the incantation to activate her dragon magic. Burn! As soon as he said that, the magic power in the Dragon Chi magnificent crystal turned into a flame and exploded in the incense burner in front of him. The herbs that had been ground into powder immediately started burning. Seeing this, Luca hurriedly picked up a lid and covered the incense burner. The next moment, a strange smoke floated up from the vent of the lid. Luca picked up the incense burner and smelled the fragrance coming from it. A trace of satisfaction appeared in her purple eyes. In this case, it should be fine. Luca, are you there? Outside the door, a voice suddenly sounded, interrupting Luca, who was talking to herself. It also gave Luca a slight fright. Lord Roland? It's me. Wu Yan's voice sounded. I'm here. Is it convenient for you to open the door? Of course. I'm here. Luca hurriedly held the incense burner in her hand and looked around in panic. Then, she trotted to the side and put the incense burner in the corner of the wall. After making sure that the aroma was still in the air, she walked to the door of the room. Lord Roland, opening the door, Wu Yan, who stood outside, appeared in Luca's field of vision. His pair of wine-red eyes seemed to have deepened in the night, captivating Luca a little. My apologies for the delay. Wu Yan scratched his cheek and spread his hands. Yeah, sure, that guy. He's treating me like an outsider. He was still trying his best to resist me in front of the inn. If it wasn't for my brute strength, I might not have been able to beat him. That's because Lord Roland is too gentle. Luca smiled shyly. I think Senior Yashur must be very grateful to Lord Roland. Don't say that. It's just a small matter. Wu Yan's expression was slightly embarrassed, being praised for being gentle in public. This is the first time Wu Yan has encountered such a situation. Lord Roland, please come in. Luca opened the door completely and stepped aside. Her beautiful amethyst-like eyes were glowing strangely. She stared straight at Wu Yan. That look made Wu Yan's heart inexplicably cold. Luca's bright eyes, how should he put it? It gave Wu Yan the feeling that she gave him. It was like Mei Jio and Origami were planning to push him down. It was as if they were going to eat him up. But how is that possible? Luca's personality is very delicate and introverted. She shouldn't be able to push her sweetheart down like Mei Jio and Origami, right? Probably? With that in mind, Wu Yan walked into Luca's room with a bit of hesitation. As soon as he entered the room, he smelled an unusually pleasant fragrance. Is this the incense you usually light? The hesitation on his face and the suspicion in his heart disappeared because of the pleasant fragrance. Wu Yan's expression immediately relaxed. It smells good. Smelling this should make you sleep well at night, right? Why, yes. For some reason, Luca's voice sounded a bit nervous. Even her action of closing the door was a bit hurried. It was as if she was afraid that Wu Yan would run away. She closed the door forcefully and hurriedly. This is not the usual Luca at all. If Wu Yan noticed this scene, even if he thought that Luca was harmless, he would still be suspicious. But now, he was relaxed because of the pleasant fragrance in the room and didn't notice Luca's abnormal behavior. Seeing that Wu Yan's expression was normal, Luca secretly sighed in relief. She walked to a small round table in the center of the room and sat down. At the same time, she picked up the teapot that was placed there. Pouring a mouthful of steaming coarse tea into a cylindrical cup with edges and corners, Luca's sparkling eyes met the cup. Lord Roland, please have some tea. No need. Wu Yan sat opposite Luca. While smelling the fragrance in the room, he waved at Luca casually. Drinking tea at night will make it hard for you to sleep, so don't drink it. Luca uttered such a sound in surprise. Her expression became flustered, as if she didn't expect things to turn out this way. She even unconsciously rubbed her hands together. Sitting opposite Luca, no matter how relaxed Wu Yan was, it was impossible for him not to notice Luca's behavior. He immediately felt strange. Luca, what's wrong? Chapter 1385. Luca, Luca is so flustered that she's on the verge of tears. Wu Yin felt suspicious, and at the same time, he couldn't help but feel a bit guilty. He has to admit, Luca's attitude is too much of foul. Luca had a pitiful appearance to begin with, and her delicate temperament was even higher than Cannon's. Only Ikaros, who easily aroused the desire of others to protect her, could rival her. Not to mention, Luca had an introverted personality. When she pretended to be pitiful, it was more lethal than any weapon. No, there's no need for her to act pitiful. This girl's every move and action is so natural that it exudes a pitiful aura. Even though he knows he did nothing wrong, he still felt like he has committed a grave sin. His expression instantly turned awkward. All right. Stop acting like you're breaking the rules. Before long, Wu Yin surrendered. I'll drink it. Really? Like a sunny day after a storm, Luca's expression turned for the better. Her watery eyes stared at Wu Yin with watery eyes. That look of hers, it's even more of a foul than before. Oh, really? Wu Yin was shocked. His heart couldn't help but waver. He forced himself not to look at Luca's expression. As if he was trying to escape, he quickly picked up the steaming teacup on the table and brought it to his mouth. HM? A mouthful of hot tea slid into Wu Yin's mouth. It flowed down his throat and into his stomach. In the next second, it was as if a ball of carefully prepared honey had exploded in his body, and a wave of warmth spread in his stomach. For a moment, it filled Wu Yan's entire body. Yet, the taste was unusually cool. It was contradictory to the extreme. Yet it felt natural. It was incredible. This tea. Wu Yan looked at the tea in the cup in astonishment. He didn't even think about it before he blurted out his comment. Incredible. As long as Lord Loon likes it. Lucas seemed happy to see Wu Yin drink the tea. His eyes curved slightly. This is tea made from herbs. I have already mixed it. Although it is not a famous tea, it is my own invention. That's really amazing. Wu Yin took another sip of the hot tea. Even though it was hot tea, it tasted cool. To be able to fill his body with warmth after entering his stomach was definitely not an exaggeration to say that it was incredible. What kind of tea is this? This is spirit herb tea, herbal tea? Luca nodded and explained. The Yeku people are good at herbalism, but the herbs are used according to different ways. Different compounding methods, different types. It is divided into many fields. Some teas made from herbs that have a good effect on the body are called spirit herb teas. So it's good for the body. Wu Yin had some admiration. That must be very expensive, right? This is a tea that I mixed myself. I can't comment on the price. Luca used a calm expression to state a fact that no one could ignore. But if the herbs used to make the tea were to be sold in the market, a conservative estimate would be that it could be sold for 300,000 ekels. 300,000 ekels. Wu Yin was shocked. Even though it has only been 2 to 3 months since he came to this world, Wu Yin had a rough idea of the value of money in this world. 300,000 ekels, compared to the bag of gold that Wu Yin tossed to Yashur today, it was definitely not much less. 300,000 ekels was just the price of the herbs. If he were to buy the tea directly, the price would definitely be several times higher. It was only now that Wu Yin realized how expensive the tea in his hand was. I really didn't expect this. But if it's good for the body, it's not that unacceptable. Wu Yin bitterly laughed as he slowly tasted the tea in his hand and casually asked, "Then what's the effect of this tea?" This. For some reason, Luca stuttered as if there was something that she couldn't say. This made Wu Yin feel a little depressed. Why is today's Luca so different from her usual self? Then that it's time to go to sleep. Luca, who was stuttering, suddenly said and stood up in a hurry. It's already very late, all right. Wu Yin gloomily swallowed the last mouthful of tea in the cup. He stood up and looked around. Luca, where's the bed? Luca pointed at the coffin in the middle of the room that was covered in white flowers. Wu Yan's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Wu Yan's eyebrows twitched as he looked at the coffin. You want me to sleep in that coffin? That's not a coffin. Luca kindly reminded him. That's a bed in the style of Yeku. It's a convenient piece of furniture that can be buried directly during a funeral. All right, So you want me to sleep in this convenient piece of furniture? Luca nodded. Wu Yin was speechless. In my life, I've slept in good beds, bad beds, floors, sofas, but I've never slept in a coffin. Wu Yin was speechless. I thought I wouldn't have the chance to sleep in a coffin. I didn't expect it to come so soon. Lord Loon. Luca lowered her head when she heard Wu Yan's words. You don't like it? I can't answer the question of whether I like her or not. Wu Yin scratched his face in a conflicted manner. However, I'm more concerned about one thing. If I sleep in this coffin, this bed, where will you sleep? Me? Luca blinked her eyes and was at a loss. Shouldn't I be sleeping with Lord Loon? Huh. Wu Yin laughed dryly. He felt like he would lose if he took this seriously. There's no other way. Wu Yin sighed. He had a lot of things he wanted to say. Then sleep? Luca's small face bloomed and became bright. What Luca did next made Wu Yin unable to react in time. Luca slowly reached for the straps on her shoulders and gently pulled them down. Soon after, the seemingly light nightgown on her body slid down her body and fell to the ground. Luca's fair and delicate body was completely exposed to the air, without a trace of cover. Luca, Wu Yan's face stiffened. Why? Why did you take off your clothes? It's cold at night. Luca answered matter-of-factly. That's why I have to warm Lord Loon with my body. You're not warming me. You're inviting me to commit a crime. Wu Yan wanted to bang his head against the wall. Aren't you afraid I'll eat you? Eat. At first, Luca tilted her head in confusion. Then, she realized what he meant by eat. A blush appeared on her pretty face as she began to blush shyly. If Lord Loon doesn't mind. But, Lord Loon, after this, please come with me to the village of Yecublade. I have to introduce Lord Loon to my adoptive father. Meet your parents? Wu Yin couldn't stay calm anymore. Is she implying that I have to take responsibility if I can't control myself? Could this be the legendary forced marriage? Wu Yin felt his head start to hurt. It seems the month he's about to spend in Luca's room isn't as peaceful as he thought. Wu Yin felt something was wrong with his body. The blood in his body seemed to have started to flow faster, and a strange heat was surging through his body. His mouth felt dry, and at the same time, an unknown evil fire appeared in his heart. Wu Yin was stunned. He didn't know what to think, and he looked at Luca with his mouth agape. You drugged the tea. Of course not. Luca shook her head like a rattle drum, but this time, Wu Yin doesn't believe her. Then why do I feel hot all of a sudden? That's... Luca turned her head away awkwardly. That's the effect of the tea. Effect? Wu Yin had a bad feeling about this. What effect? That. Luca was like a child who had done something wrong and answered in a mosquito's voice. Strengthening energy. Looking at Luca's naked and alluring body, listening to her answer, he felt the lust rising in his heart and his vision turned black. He knew he was going to be sad tonight. Chapter 1386. In the following days, Wu Yan's life could only be described as an abyss of suffering. The reconstruction of the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy was in full swing. As a member of the student council, the amount of effort needed to contribute to the rebuilding of the academy would definitely not be small. Among other things, Wu Yan is in charge of calculating the funds needed to rebuild the academy, assigning jobs to the staff, students, and Dragon Race members. Also, he is in charge of the types and designs of the buildings being rebuilt. Wu Yan is in charge of all of this. Logically speaking, these tasks should be handled by the president of the student council. After all, the person who made all the arrangements for the reconstruction work was already considered the person with the highest authority in the reconstruction work of the academy. As the president of the student council, it was only right for Leibeka to handle these matters. However, Leibeka still had to sort out the matter of the Corp's Grey Dragon army attacking the Ansari Academy and report it to the Knighthood Kingdom. She also had to explain and discuss with the relevant higher-ups. Sometimes, she even had to go to the city council for a meeting. Her workload was already very heavy, so she couldn't take care of the academy. Thus, all the arrangements for the reconstruction of the academy were made. All of them fell to Wu Yan, the student council's assistant. The position of assistant was originally meant to fill in for the absence of the vice president and secretary of the student union. It was established to support Rebecca, the president of the student council. Now that Rebecca was busy and couldn't participate in the reconstruction of the academy, Wu Yin naturally had to take on the responsibility as her assistant. This wasn't an easy task. The Ansari Dragon Academy was no ordinary academy. It was known as the Academy City, so one could imagine how vast the Ansari Dragon Academy needed to be rebuilt. The workload was huge. At least, Wu Yin felt that ever since he took on this job, he didn't have time to rest except at night. No, he didn't even have time to rest at night. Of course, the reason why he didn't have time to rest at night wasn't related to the construction of the academy. It has nothing to do with the rebuilding of the academy. It's mainly because of Wu Yan's roommate, Luca. Luca was the secretary of the student council. In other words, after Wu Yin joined the student council, Luca had been absent. Her work, it was all done by Wu Yin as her assistant. However, the reason why Luca was absent was because Gawain refused to let her ride him. She was so depressed that she didn't even attend classes. It was understandable that she didn't work in the student council. Now, since Luca and Gawain's relationship had recovered, the secretary naturally returned to the student council. To be honest, Luca helped Wu Yin a lot during the reconstruction of the academy during the day. She made sure that Wu Yin didn't even have the time to take a breather. Although he didn't have the time to rest, the work went smoothly and it was quite relaxing. But at night, Luca would change and become Wu Yan's biggest problem. It was because this girl seemed to be thinking about something more than friendship with Wu Yin all the time. When he really lived in Luca's room and stayed with her, Wu Yin realized that he had underestimated Luca. Luca had a slender personality. She was usually quiet and expressionless. She was a fresh and refined girl like a fairy. She was also very weak in her bones. She was a typical soft girl. With Luca's personality, even if she really had an unusually good impression of someone, she might be hesitant and unable to make up her mind to confess. And if she was asked to take the initiative to push down the opposite sex like Meijio and origami, it was something that she would never do even if she was beaten to death. This was Wu Yan's impression of Luca. So, it wasn't until he started living with Luca that he felt the need to change his impression of her. Indeed, Luca was a typical soft girl. It was impossible for her to push the opposite sex. However, she would try her best to make Wu Yin take the initiative to push her down. Luca couldn't seduce him, but she dared to drug him. She couldn't take the initiative, but she dared to be extremely passive. On the first night alone, Luca made Wu Yin drink some spiritual strengthening herbal tea. It was conceivable that she, who became bolder and bolder, came up with some horrible methods to make Wu Yin turn into a wolf. It wasn't until later that Wu Yin found out that Luca had been lighting up incense sticks in her room that can relax one's mind and strengthen one's energy. She's trying to break down Wu Yan's resistance against her. Coupled with the fact that Luca would occasionally use all sorts of methods to turn him into a wolf that he couldn't even fathom, she would even sleep with him naked at night. Wu Yin didn't know how many times he almost pushed this little vixen down. Unfortunately, every time when Wu Yin almost turned into a wolf, Luca would stubbornly add a sentence. I hope that Lord Loon will come with me to the village of Yekibrad after this and meet my adoptive father, the current chief of the Yekibrad tribe. According to the customs of the Yekibrad tribe, bringing the opposite sex back to meet the chief or parents meant an engagement. In the future, they would have to be married together. Pushing her down was a small matter. Marriage was a big matter. What a scumbag. Therefore, Wu Yin couldn't do it until he was sure that he really had some kind of feelings for Luca. Because of this, Wu Yin spent the night in an abyss of suffering. He was hugging a delicate and soft girl in his arms, and she was completely naked. She had even given him some formula to strengthen his energy and break down his resistance, causing his body to react very faithfully. In the end, he couldn't even eat her skin and bones. What a painful thing that would be. If this doesn't count as an abyss of suffering, Wu Yin would feel that his life before this was way too good. However, after a long period of sex, Wu Yin and Luca got along better. Luca was no longer as respectful to him as before. Although she kept calling him Lord Roland, her tone and behavior were no longer as respectful as before. Now, they were getting along like friends. Moreover, whether it is at work or in life, Luca has always rushed to help Wu Yin, taking care of Wu Yin. She's more considerate than anyone else. Now, she's even washing Wu Yan's underwear. She's just like a good wife and a loving mother. Wu Yan's heart has been tugged at by her. If it went on like this, Wu Yan might not be able to resist the temptation and go back to her hometown to marry her. Of course, Cosette was dissatisfied with Luca's taking care of her daily life. This was supposed to be her job. However, Sylvia had been acting strangely recently. She didn't talk much and would be absent-minded from time to time during work. Even when she was sleeping, she would stare blankly at the sky, as if she had something on her mind. She was even more silent than Luca, which made Cosette very worried. Under such circumstances, Cosette didn't have time to compete with Luca to take care of Wu Yan. She was racking her brains to find a way to restore Sylvia to her original state. Unfortunately, before Cosette could think of a solution, her peaceful life was once again disrupted. Boom! One morning, an explosive sound accompanied by a shockwave reverberated in front of Epona house. Like an earthquake, the entire Epona dormitory shook slightly. The glass windows also trembled. In the dormitory, the girls of the advanced classes screamed and caused a commotion. What's going on? Following a nervous voice, the window of the Epinash royal family's private room was opened, revealing Sylvia's panicked face. However, when Sylvia poked her head out of the window, the scene that entered her eyes caused her to freeze on the spot. Excuse me. On the empty ground in front of Epona's house, a beautiful woman wearing a yellow-green dragon riding suit saluted Sylvia energetically. I am a court's first-rank postmistress, Ovida Brown. Ovida Brown. Sylvia? Lord Lehman's fourth princess. The woman named Ovida took out a scroll from her bag. The Night King has a letter for you. Father. Sylvia was shocked. Chapter 1387. Ansari Dragon Riding Academy. Epona. In the royal family's room, Sylvia sat in front of her desk. She took out the scroll she had just received from the postman and carefully tore it open. Night King, Eoward, Lorimon. As soon as this name was mentioned, as long as it was a citizen of the Knight's Kingdom of Loria, there would be no one who would not be in awe. However, only those who were truly familiar with Orvard would know that this Night King in name was actually quite disappointing when they actually met him. It's not that Eoward is incompetent as the Night King. He's not an incapable ruler either. On the contrary, he's very amiable and considerate towards the knighthood. However, compared to his wife, dead son, and 4 daughters, Eoward is too mediocre. Not only is his appearance mediocre, there's nothing special about his personality. As the Night King, he doesn't have the demeanor of a royal family. He doesn't have the temperament and cultivation that he should have. His ability to handle political affairs is much weaker than others. His strength isn't as strong as Veronica's. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he's just an ordinary person. Moreover, he's not a dragon cultivator like Sylvia. He's simply mediocre. He doesn't look like a king at all. Instead, he looks more like an amiable old man. Thus, as the current Night King, although Eoward has real power, he knows that he's not a king. He's not an outstanding king. Thus, Eoward simply handed over most of the political affairs to his outstanding subordinates. He also gave almost all of the real power of the Night royal family to Veronica. He himself is living a leisurely life and can enjoy it very much. Because of this, Sylvia, who knows what kind of person her birth father is, treated Eoward's letter so seriously. With Eoward's lazy personality, he actually gave up on his enjoyment and spent so much effort to write a letter to Sylvia. Thinking about it, it must be something urgent or important that Sylvia has to be careful. After reading Alvard's letter in detail, Sylvia was even more certain of her suspicions. This was indeed a very important matter. Sylvia threw the letter on the table and leaned back in her chair as if she lost all her strength. Her icy blue eyes looked at the ceiling in a daze. She muttered to herself, "Participate in the Continental Conference. That's right. Knight King Orwald's letter clearly told Sylvia that Sylvia was to participate in the Continental Conference. The Continental Conference is a conference held every 5 years. It gathers the leaders of all the top factions in Eluxtran. During the Continental Conference, Lormon Knighthood, Shepron Kingdom, Sepharo's Empire, Rovlock Merchant City, and Espadar Hall will unite. These 5 forces that each held a place in the Eruxtran continent would send their own representatives to gather together for an important summit that would determine the future of the Eruxtran continent. The Continental Congress was a tradition of the Eluxtran continent. Back then, A of the Lorimon Knighthood of Lorimon Knighthood Empire. The conference Amon Continent Amon of the conference. Amon Amon, the of Amon Amon of knighthood of Amon the continent had. Was Amon Amon one, could only imagine how important the continent's congress was to the various peak powers of Eluxtran. Now, the Continental Conference that is held every 5 years is finally going to be held again. Thus, Knight King Eoward ordered Sylvia to return to the capital of Lorimon Knighthood, Fantion City, and attend the Continental Conference. Of course, that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing is that every Continental Conference is hosted by Rosa Maria Church. The core of the Church of Mary, the Espada Basilica, was in charge of hosting the event. Furthermore, the location of the event was decided by the current Pope of the Espada Basilica through divination. The current Pope of Espadar Hall has already divined the location of this year's Continental Conference and announced it to the entire Eluxtran continent. It is the capital of Lorimon Knighthood, Fantion City. Fantion City, which is located in the center of Fantion City's capital, must be in a state of chaos. They must be preparing for the Continental Conference, right? In other words, it won't be long before the representatives of the top factions of Eluxtran arrive at the capital of Lorimon Knighthood. They might even gather in the capital of Lorimon Knighthood. This matter could not be said to be small. However, Sylvia was only annoyed. She wasn't in a hurry. Originally, Sylvia had been troubled by a certain matter during this period of time. Now, before the matter had been resolved, her home had become the venue for the Continental Conference, and even her student had to attend the conference. How could Sylvia not be annoyed? Moreover, Eoward didn't only ask her to go to Fantion City. There are others apart from her as well. Sigh. With a sigh, Sylvia walked to her bed in a mess and fell down. Her skirt flew up, and the lower half of her fat two-suit was completely exposed to the air. "Your Highness, you're being too rude." Corset, who had prepared black tea for Sylvia, happened to walk in and saw this scene. "You don't look like a princess at all. Don't mind me," Sylvia said in a muffled voice. "There's no one else here anyway. Let me relax for a bit." Corset shook her head with a smile, but didn't say anything else. Putting the black tea in his hand on the table, Corset glanced at the letter written by Alvord on the table and asked, "What did the Night King say in the letter?" "He?" Sylvia's voice became even more muffled. "He ordered me to return to Fantion City and attend the Continental Conference." "Really?" Corset's eyes lit up. "Congratulations, Your Highness." The Continental Conference is a conference that only the representatives of the top factions in Eluxtran can attend. It will decide the future of the continent. Such an important meeting also meant that those who could attend would definitely become the most important figures in their respective factions in the future. The fact that Sylvia was present proved that the royal family of knights really intended to push her up the ranks. How could Corset not be happy for Sylvia? However, Sylvia was still in a bad mood. "But with my abilities, attending a conference like this is too much of a burden." "Your Highness, how can you think that way?" Corset raised an eyebrow. "Did you forget? Lord Loon hates it when you give up before you do anything. If he finds out, he will be very disappointed." I know." Sylvia couldn't help but care. Although she still looked unhappy, she sat up from the bed and tidied up her messy skirt. Seeing this, Cosette secretly heaved a sigh of relief. During this period of time, Sylvia had always looked as if she had something on her mind, which really worried Cosette. But now, Corset was a little relieved. At the very least, no matter how depressed Sylvia is, she still cares about Wu Yen, right? Then forgive my rudeness. Corset politely informed Sylvia and immediately picked up the letter from the Night King on the table and began to read it. Oh, it didn't take long for Corset to raise her eyebrows and laugh out loud. Bring Loon with you when you return home? With Randall? Is this a meeting with the parents? Huh. Sylvia was stunned for a moment before her pretty face turned red with a bang. You? What nonsense are you talking about? Ah, isn't that right? Of course not. Sylvia didn't hide her wavering. Father's letter also said to bring Yashur and Yak. How could he mean that? Well, this only means that the Night King doesn't mean that. Corset gloated. But your highness, don't you want to bring Lord Loon to see your father? Ew. Shut up. Sylvia's face flushed red as she grabbed a pillow and threw it at Corset with all her might. Corset hurriedly caught the pillow thrown by Sylvia, and the smile on her face grew wider. The princess has finally returned to her normal self. Chapter 1388. Ansari Dragon Riding Academy, Student Council Office. That's it for the details. In a meeting with all the members of the Student Council, Wu Yin rubbed his eyebrows. He explained the report of the reconstruction of the academy, as well as its progress and arrangements, before exhaling deeply. He sat down and gave his closing remarks. So if there are no accidents, the reconstruction work of the academy should be almost done in about 10 days. Although it can't be said to be completely restored to its previous functions, it shouldn't be a problem if it's just for classes. We should also arrange for the start of the school term. That's great. Yashur was the first to rejoice. It's been so long since we've had classes, and we've been staying in a hotel. I'm not used to it. Well done, Roland. Lebecca praised him. It's all thanks to you that the Academy's reconstruction is going so smoothly. You've contributed greatly this time. It would have been hard for me to do it alone. Wu Yin rolled his eyes. Without Luca, Sylvia, and Yashur's help, let alone being successful, even the progress might have been delayed quite a bit. I don't dare to take all the credit, especially Luca. She helped me a lot. It's nothing. It's my duty to help Master Roland. Luca was a little shy as she lowered her head regretfully. What a pity. I can't stay with Master Roland anymore. Ma! Luca's voice is a bit soft, but Wu Yin, who is sitting beside her, heard it. He quickly covered it up. You'll have a chance in the future. Luca's expression eased up a bit. It seems like the people around them didn't hear what Lucas said. Wu Yin sighed in relief. One must know that the matter of him eating, living, and sleeping together with Luca was only known to Yashu at present. The other girls still didn't know. If the rest of the girls found out about this, they would not be able to do anything. Wu Yin didn't even need to think to know how he would be treated. So, it's best to keep it a secret for now. It's for my own good. Regardless, without your help, things wouldn't have gone so smoothly. Lebecca smiled at Wu Yin. At the same time, he said apologetically, as the president of the student council, I didn't help much in the rebuilding of the academy. I'm really ashamed. Guild leader, please don't say that. Yashur comforted. The guild leader also has his own matters to attend to. We understand. Yak was the one who had nothing to do. She had nothing to do. Bang! Before he could finish speaking, a muffled sound reverberated clearly from under the table. At the same time, Yashur's face turned completely green as he howled in grief. Humph! Aika snorted coldly. She silently retracted her foot that was stepping on Yashur's foot and drank her tea. That nonchalant look of hers, as if nothing had happened, really made one's heart tremble. Rebecca, how are things on your side? Wu Yin shook his head and looked at Lebecca. When the corpse dragon army attacked the academy, did the royal family of knights not do anything? I'm also troubled by this. Lebecca frowned and rubbed her chin. I've sorted out the details many times and had a lot of discussions with the city council. The report should have been sent to Fantion City, but the royal family of knights' response left me scratching my head. Oh? Wu Yin looked at Lebecca with everyone's gaze. How should I put this? They said. Lebecca met Wu Yin's gaze. How about we wait for Roland? We can talk face to face after Randall arrives at Fantion City. Wait for me to arrive at Fantion City? Wu Yin was stunned. Lord Roland. Luca and the others were also confused. Are you going to Fantion City? How is that possible? Wu Yin was confused. I've never thought about going to Fantion City. Then what's going on? Rebecca tilted her head in confusion. Why would they give such an answer? Everyone looked at each other in dismay. None of them could make sense of what was going on. It was also at this moment that Sylvia raised her hand submissively and spoke in a mosquito-like voice. Actually, I can explain, Everyone was stunned for a moment. They looked at Sylvia suspiciously, causing Sylvia's face to stiffen. You can explain? Wu Yin asked in confusion. Sylvia, did you receive any news? That. Sylvia's ears turned red, and her gaze drifted around, causing everyone to be surprised. Though they didn't ask, they all saw Sylvia's recent state of mind. They knew Sylvia had something on her mind and wasn't in a good mood. It wasn't convenient for them to ask, and Sylvia didn't say anything even if they asked. They could only wait and see. Now, that Sylvia was like this, could it be that her problem had been solved? Thinking of this, everyone also released a kind smile. Take your time. Wu Yin handed Sylvia a cup of black tea. Have some tea first, thank you. Sylvia blushed and took the black tea. She took a sip and looked around at everyone. When she saw the kind smiles on everyone's faces, Sylvia mustered up her courage. Actually, my father sent a letter saying he wants to meet Rune. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire place fell silent. Then, loud gasps of surprise echoed throughout the student council office. Meet me? Wu Yin flinched at her words. Is that what he means? Yashur asked hesitantly. Meet the parents? Meet the parents? Wu Yin was even more shocked. Meet the parents? Luca gasped. She grabbed Wu Yan's arm out of reflex. No, I can't. I can't. Sylvia's face was starting to redden, but when she heard Luca's words, her body tensed up. Why not? Because... Luca stuttered. After a while, she spoke with tears in her eyes. Even if you want to meet the parents, Lord Rune has to come with me to the village to meet my godfather first. What kind of twisted logic is this? Sylvia's aura was slowly becoming more and more imposing. You want to ignore the Night King's summons and go somewhere else? How unbelievable! In the face of Sylvia's imposing manner, Luca met her head-on, out of the ordinary. Status doesn't mean everything when it comes to love. What did you say? Sylvia's face reddened. I don't want to use my status to date anyone. Then it's first come, first served. Luca tightened her grip on Wu Yan's arm. Lord Rune, you have to come with me to Yekablad to meet my godfather. You? Sylvia's fingers trembled in anger. What's going on? Wu Yan couldn't bear to watch and turned to Rebecca. President, are you going to leave them in the lurch? Well, personally speaking, I can understand their actions. Rebecca's words caused the entire place to fall into silence once more. After all, the people from my family also said that they wanted to see you and asked me to bring you back. Even Rebecca. Luca looked at Rebecca in disbelief. No way. Sylvia was also confused. What's going on? Wu Yin couldn't help but ask. I've never heard of it. That's because I don't think there's a need. Rebecca glanced at Wu Yin with a half-smile. The people of the Randall family want to see you because you, who is my guard and given the surname Randall by me, have defeated the strongest captain Ursula. This made the people of the family ecstatic. Each of them expressed that they want to see you, an outsider who has the surname of the family. I think they want to try their best to rope you in, so I didn't think about bringing you back, I see. Wu Yin was relieved. Sylvia and Luca also let out a sigh of relief. However, reality proved that it was still too early for them to be relieved. However, putting aside my family, I actually want to bring you back home to meet my family. Rebecca's words shocked everyone. No matter what, you're the only person of the opposite sex who has moved my heart. For a moment, Sylvia and Luca emitted a deadly aura of resentment. Wu Yin laughed dryly. Chapter 1389. The next day, early morning. Today, the reconstruction of the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy was almost complete. Other than some of the less important and less practical buildings, basically everything that should have been there had been restored. On the main street of the academy, Uniformed students were chatting and laughing while taking a stroll in the rebuilt academy. This scene was very reassuring. Currently, the reconstruction of the academy was still in progress, and the classes had not yet resumed. However, the students had already received news that in about 10 days at the latest, the Ansari Dragon Academy would once again welcome classes and the students would resume their own classes. Therefore, even though the students were looking forward to the arrival of classes, there were also many who wanted to play as much as possible before classes started. Therefore, students could be seen everywhere in the academy enjoying the last period of their holiday. In the open space in front of Epona's dormitory, Wu Yin, Yashur, and Yak were standing there. Moreover, they weren't wearing their usual uniforms. At this moment, Wu Yin was wearing the academy's dragon riding uniform. The hem of his coat was fluttering in the wind. This caused the entire space to reverberate with the fluttering of his coat. On the other hand, Yashur was wearing a nice-looking uniform. The uniform was embroidered with the insignia of the Night Palace and had a bow tie. It looked very stylish. However, those who were in the know knew that the uniform was stylish, but it was actually a servant's uniform in the palace style. Not only was Yashur wearing a palace-style servant's uniform, even Yak, who was standing next to him, was wearing a palace-style servant's uniform. Wearing such clothes, Wu Yin, Yashur, and Yak stood together. It was as if some royal family was about to bring their two servants out for an inspection. This caused Yashur to be embarrassed and Yak's expression to be a bit unsightly. Not long after, Yak angrily complained in a loud voice. They actually made a noble dragon wear this kind of servant's uniform. Is this how the Night Kingdom treats dragons who are connected to their lives? Just bear with it for a while. Yashur finally heard Yak's complaint and showed an expected expression. He made a pre-prepared appeasement. Look, aren't I also wearing servant's uniform? Unfortunately, Yashur's consolation only brought about the opposite effect. You're a servant to begin with. Yak retorted matter-of-factly. How can a mere watchdog compare to the honorable dragon clan? Ashu immediately choked. All right, Yak, stop complaining. At the side, Yak said. Wu Yin shrugged. This is also for Sylvia, isn't it? Needless to say, the fact that Yashio and Yak had dressed up like this was naturally not their own will. In fact, this was Cosette's proposal. Although Finchin City wasn't too far away from Ansari City, it wasn't a place where one could go whenever they wanted to. If he used the usual method of moving, he might not be able to reach it even after an entire day. Therefore, in order not to waste time, the only way to travel to Fantion City was to ride on a dragon. However, this was where the problem came from. Yashur's fall was Yak. Although she was a dragon, with Yak's form, not to mention whether she was willing to let Yashur ride on her head, from a physical point of view, even if she was willing, by the time Yak ran to Finchin City on foot, the Continental Conference would already be over. Yak was also in human form, so she couldn't move as fast as a dragon. Naturally, she was reduced to a spectator. In this way, Yashur and Yak could only choose to ride on Lancelot and head to Fantion City like Sylvia. However, for the princess of a country to ride together with a male student, who was even her classmate at that, it wasn't strange for there to be some kind of ridiculous rumors, right? After all, the thing that attracted the curiosity of the reporters the most was the love affairs of the royal family. It was commonly known as gossip and privacy. Even if Sylvia and Yashur were innocent, the reporters could still write something black out of something white. In order to prevent rumors from spreading on the way to Fantion City with Sylvia, Corsette suggested that Yashur and Yak dress up as servants. It was a very common thing for the royal family to bring their servants out to travel. This way, they could avoid the gossip of others. Yak knew this very well, so she didn't yell directly. However, she still complained more or less. I'm also a dragon princess. Why do I have to be treated like this? Yak's expression was unbearably sour. She pointed at Wu Yin, who didn't seem to care at all. Also, even I, a girl, dress up like this. You also don't ride your own dragon. Why don't you use it? You should be like Yashur. If you ride with Sylvia, there will be rumors, right? Don't ask me that question. Wu Yin rolled his eyes. I don't really care what I dress up like. It's fine as long as I can meet people. Corsette said I don't need it. Why? Yak couldn't get over it. Why don't you use it? Because even if there are rumors between Lord Roan and Her Highness, it won't be a big deal. Sylvia and Corset appeared in front of Epona Lodge's door and walked over. Lord Roan defeated Commander Ursula. That's enough for the reporters to not write anything unsightly. Corset winked at Yak with a smile. Moreover, if there really is a rumor, my princess will probably be very happy. Don't talk nonsense over there. Sylvia glared at Corset. Wu Yin and the others could clearly see that her white ears had turned slightly red. Today, Sylvia also had her bright blonde hair coiled up. She was wearing a dragon riding robe embroidered with the insignia of the royal family of knights. Her neck and ears were completely exposed under the sunlight, and it wasn't strange for everyone to see that her ears were red. Well, Your Highness, don't be shy. Corset seemed to be in high spirits. She didn't stop after Sylvia's reprimand. Instead, she attacked again. Your Highness, this is a meeting between the parents. Don't you dare deny that you're not excited at all. I am ready to go. Sylvia hurriedly summoned Lancelot. A wide-range magic formation rippled beneath her feet. Heed my summons and come here. Lancelot, roar. A loud and clear roar echoed from the magic array, gradually becoming louder and louder. Lancelot's silver body also appeared in the magic array, majestically making his appearance. Sylvia flipped over and leaped onto Lancelot's back. You guys get on as well. Then let's go. Wu Yin shook his head. He didn't say anything else. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and leaped up lightly. He landed on Lancelot's back. Corset also took the laced apron of her maid uniform and flew up like a flower. Yashur and Yak stood in place. They stared at Wu Yin and Corset's suave way of mounting their horses. After a long time, Yak gave an order. You, hurry up and fly up as well. Don't force me. You know I can't do it, right? TSK. You're so useless. I'm just an ordinary person. Don't compare me. Then I'll give you the Holy Knight armor. Don't lose the scene. Give me a cool entrance. You're willing to give me the Holy Knight armor just for a cool entrance? Isn't your Holy Knight armor too cheap? What do you mean by present? It's just a replica. It's not a present. Then what should I do? After saying that, Yashio and Yak once again stared at each other with their small eyes. Anything is fine. On Lancelot's back, Wu Yan's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but yell. Anyway, get on first. Don't waste my time. Yashur and Yak looked at each other and fell silent. In the end, they obediently went under Lancelot's body and climbed up the dragon's back along with Lancelot's reins. You're ready, right? Sylvia smiled bitterly and pulled on the reins in her hand. Then let's go. Roar. Lancelot faced the sky and let out a long howl. Like an arrow, he soared into the sky and flew towards the distant horizon. Chapter 1390. The scorching sun hung high in the sky, sprinkling down dazzling rays of sunlight that illuminated the entire land and the bustling city below. Fantion City, the capital of the Lorman knighthood, where the royal family of knights and the royal palace were located. Compared to Ansari City, regardless of importance, in terms of land area and prosperity, Fantion City was several levels ahead of Ansari City. The tall city walls drew a path in a very regular pattern, surrounding the entire city of Fantion. There were streets, urban areas, and rivers inside. It was just like a small country. There were a lot of people in Fantion City. Although it wasn't a sea of people, it could still be a sea of people if they gathered together. The buildings were more elegant, like small courtyards. It was said that they were all built according to the style of the Shepron Kingdom, the suzerain of the Lorimon Kingdom of Knighthood. If one looked down from the sky above Fantion City, they would discover that the city walls that surrounded Fantion City formed a pattern. That pattern had traces of the royal family's emblem, as well as the shadow of the star carving of the dragon nurturer. Similarly, it also had a part of the flag of King Siapulong. Although the overall combination couldn't be described as beautiful, it was more than enough to say that it was exquisite. By the way, Fantion City also had city walls. It seemed to separate the entire Fantion City into regions. Because of this, it looked more like a small country. However, the regions were connected to each other. There was no priority. If one had to say which region was more important, then only the central region was more important than the other regions. That was because the royal palace of the Lorman knighthood, the castle that was shaped like a tower, Fantion City, was located here. Originally, Fantion City was a metropolis with Fantion City as the center. Therefore, it was understandable that the central region of Fantion City was more important than the other regions. Fantion City, which was located in the central region of Fantion City, was about to become the venue for this continental conference. The representatives of the top forces from all over the continent would gather and decide the future direction of the continent. Such an important conference was held here. It also made the atmosphere of Fantion City tense. Of course, it was only the central region with Fantion City as the center that was nervous. This was the real venue for the Continental Conference. Therefore, on normal days, the rarely seen dragon knights seemed to have gathered in one place today. They rode their respective holy dragons and circled back and forth above Fantion City. The dragon knights were all armed, and their faces were solemn. These dragon knights, they were all dragon knights of the Lorman Holy Dragon Knights. During the Continental Conference, the venue and the safety of the representatives of the top forces naturally became the most important. Under such circumstances, the knighthood couldn't afford to be careless. Thus, during the limited time the Continental Conference was held, Lorimen's Holy Dragon Knights would gather and be in charge of guarding before and after the conference. When Lancelot brought Wu Yin and the others to Fantion City, the vigilant Dragon Knights all rode their holy dragons and adjusted their magic power, causing a whirlwind of magic power to sweep up above Fantion City. However, these Dragon Knights all seemed to recognize Lancelot. They knew that Lancelot was Sylvia's fall. When they confirmed that it was Lancelot and Sylvia on the dragon's back, the magic power in the sky gradually calmed down. Your Highness Sylvia. A moment later, all the dragon knights in the sky above Fantion City lined up neatly and bowed to Sylvia in unison. Thank you for your hard work, everyone. Sylvia responded to the dragon knights in a loud voice. With a serious expression, she slowly landed in Fantion City. The dragon knights dispersed and continued to be on guard. Phew, Yashur, who had been holding his breath since the beginning, let out a long sigh and wiped away the cold sweat that had dripped down from his forehead without him knowing. What a tight security. It's the beginning of the Continental Conference after all. It's necessary to be on guard. Wu Yin looked around at the holy dragons circling in the sky and nodded. With such a scale of security, I'm sure even the big countries wouldn't dare to act recklessly, right? Of course. Sylvia couldn't help but straighten her back proudly. The Lorman knighthood is a famous knight order even in the entire continent. Although the Lorman knighthood is only a small country, in terms of military power, the knighthood is definitely not weaker than the big countries. That's because of the dragons. Yak quickly took the credit. Without the dragons, how could a knighthood be so mighty? The knighthood and the dragons are one. Sylvia retorted with some dissatisfaction. You're being too unreasonable by separating the dragons from the knighthood, aren't you? I didn't mean that. Yak immediately turned her head away in embarrassment. I'm just reminding you not to forget the contributions of the dragons. None of the knights will forget what the dragons have brought to us. Sylvia was very serious when she said this. So Yak, I hope you don't treat us as outsiders. All right, it's my fault. Yak was helpless. As they spoke, Lancelot landed in front of Fantion City's gates and laid down on the ground. Everyone dismounted from the dragon's back and began to examine the city. It looked like an ancient castle with layers of buildings stacked on top of each other. The top of the building had a sharp shape, so it looked like a large tower. It flashed with a steel-like luster under the sun. Obviously, in terms of sturdiness, it was definitely not bad. The gates slowly opened as the group dismounted from Lancelot's back. The two majestic dragons carved on the gates were imprinted in everyone's vision. They could faintly see the light in the eyes of the two dragons. It was very vivid. Under Sylvia's lead, Wu Yin, Cosette, Yak, and Yashur walked up the stairs and entered the city. A moment later, a magnificent hall appeared before everyone's eyes. Everyone could clearly see that around the resplendent hall, there were statues of knights and dragons arranged in an orderly manner, as if they were guarding something. Along with these statues, there were also 2 rows of maids dressed in the style of the palace. In the center of the hall stood a bespectacled head maidservant who looked much older than Cosette. "Welcome back." In the hall of Fantion City, the maidservants lowered their heads and bowed deeply. "Your Highness Sylvia." Looking at the 2 neat rows of maids saluting in unison and their loud and clear voices echoing in the surroundings, Yashio and Yak seemed to be shocked and were unable to react for a long time. Sylvia nodded calmly and looked at the bespectacled head maidservant in the center. "Long time no see, Frida." "Yes, Your Highness Sylvia." The maid named Frida took a step forward. "The Night King has been waiting for Your Highness for a long time. Let the guests familiarize themselves with the environment first," Sylvia said, but Frida insisted. "Greet the Night King first. This." "All right." Sylvia hesitated and nodded helplessly. Frida looked at Wu Yin. She sized up Wu Yin for a bit before opening her mouth. "This should be Roland? Sir Randall?" Wu Yin paused for a second. "What is it?" "The Night King has orders," Frida said concisely. "He wants Sir Roland and Her Highness Sylvia to greet him together." "Me?" Wu Yin raised an eyebrow. So soon?" Sylvia seemed surprised as well. "Is Imperial Father in such a hurry to see Roland?" "Please, Sir Roland." Frida didn't answer. Instead, she turned to the side and made an inviting gesture. "This maidservant is quite arrogant." Wu Yin nodded nonchalantly when this thought popped up in his mind. "I can do it any time. There's no other way." Sylvia sighed. "Then let's go." Chapter 1391. Under Corset's care, Wu Yin and Sylvia changed out of their dragon riding clothes and put on formal attire before heading to the Night King's residence. Walking along the endless corridor, Wu Yin stretched his body that was restrained by the formal attire and spoke in a bored tone. "Why does the Night King want to see me so soon?" Sylvia frowned in confusion. "With my father's personality, he shouldn't be the kind of person who is thirsty for talent just because someone is more talented than him. To be honest, I don't really understand." "Even you don't understand?" Wu Yin continued to stretch his body while asking curiously. "Speaking of which, the Night King, who is your father? What kind of person is he?" Sylvia's face turned green at a speed visible to the naked eye. She seemed to have recalled something that she didn't want to recall. She sighed. "You'll find out soon enough." "Is that so?" "Ah, I hope you won't be too disappointed. Now that you mention it, I'm curious." Wu Yin has heard rumors about the Night King. Of course, they aren't all that good of a rumor. However, Wu Yin only knew that the Night King was an unqualified king. As for what kind of person the Night King was, Wu Yin didn't know. Seeing Sylvia like this, the Night King didn't seem to leave a good impression on others. What kind of person is he? With that thought in mind, Wu Yin and Sylvia arrived at the Night King's hall. Wu Yin soon found out why Sylvia didn't want to talk about her father. "Oh, I've been waiting for you for a long time, my dear daughter." Along with such a horrifying voice, a black shadow suddenly rushed from the front. Halfway through, it jumped up and drew a perfect parabola in the air. It pounced on Sylvia, who just entered the hall. Wah! Wu Yin didn't expect this. To think that they would be attacked when they came to the hall where they had an audience with the Night King. So, it was a conditioned reflex. Wu Yin sent out a flying kick. It hit the face of the charging black shadow. Oh! The black shadow let out a miserable cry. He flew out at a speed faster than when he came, leaving a trail of blood behind him as he landed on his back. It smashed into the floor not far away. Its two legs twitched and straightened. Then it stopped moving. Only then did Wu Yin see the full appearance of the attacker. It was a man in luxurious clothes with a cloak behind him. He had an extremely mediocre face and a large beard. It was hard to tell if he was middle-aged or old. At this moment, this uncle who seemed to be relying on his clothes to support his image, had his face on the ground. Blood was crazily spurting out from his nostrils, and there was a footprint on his face. His eyes were circled, and he looked like he had fainted. It was extremely embarrassing. Where did this guy come from? That's the first sentence Wu Yin uttered with his mouth agape. Even if he wanted to attack someone, he should have sent someone more decent, right? He didn't want to attack us. On the side, Sylvia's eyebrows twitched and the corners of her mouth twitched. He wanted to attack me. Attack you? Wu Yin didn't know what to say. As if she couldn't bear to look at it, Sylvia no longer looked at the uncle who was bleeding profusely on the ground. She turned her head away and squeezed out those words with all her might. He is my father, the current Night King of the Night Kingdom of Lorman, Alvard. Night King? Wu Yin was stunned. I know you don't want to believe it, Sylvia said with a sorrowful expression, but it is the truth. Wu Yin's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but look at Alvard. He looked at the Night King, who was bleeding from his nose and covering his face with circles in his eyes. In other words, I sent the current Night King flying with a kick, right? Yes. Why don't I feel fear? Instead, I feel good all over? Don't mind. Why? Because I feel the same way. The two of them looked at Alvard in silence. Wu Yin's heart was in turmoil. He finally understood why Sylvia would always have a look of disgust on her face whenever the Night King Orwald was mentioned, and why she would always try to brush him off. If Wu Yin had such a father, don't even talk about being a prince. Even if he was given the throne, he wouldn't feel that he's lucky enough to be the ruler of this world. He was simply the best of the best. Then, Wu Yin suppressed the turmoil in his heart and rubbed his forehead. Why did he suddenly lunge at me? Sylvia lowered her head and didn't say anything. However, the answer still echoed in the spacious hall. Do you even need to ask? Like a person on the verge of death, Night King Orwald suddenly raised his head. His hand that was covered in blood from his nose trembled as if he was about to die, and he extended it towards Sylvia. To give my beloved daughter a hug of love. After saying that, Alvard tilted his head and his eyes started to draw circles again. Wu Yin and Sylvia looked at each other and saw the speechless expression on each other's face. Sigh. Wu Yin sighed and looked at Sylvia. What should we do now? Let's go back. Sylvia replied without hesitation. When he wakes up, he will naturally summon us again. Is that so? Wu Yin laughed dryly. Then let's leave it at that. Although I can understand your situation, let's wait a little longer before leaving. Just as Wu Yin and Sylvia were about to turn around and leave, a metallic clanging sound entered their ears. Along with it came the sound of footsteps that reverberated through the entire space. The two of them stopped in their tracks and turned their heads at the same time to look at the source of the sound. Wearing a heavy and revealing armor, she slowly walked over from the direction of the throne. Her sharp eyes stared at Wu Yin and Sylvia. Her lips curled into a small grin. Long time no see, Roland, Sylvia. Wu Yin and Sylvia were stunned. When they realized who it was, they were shocked. Veronica, royal sister. The newcomer was the first princess of Lorraine's Kingdom of Knights, the iron-blooded Valkyrie, Veronica. Behind Veronica, Gu Yin, the captain of her personal guards, followed closely behind her. He was wearing the cold, holy knight armor, and his eyes were equally cold. You're early. Veronica had a rare smile on her face. I thought you two would be late. When Sylvia saw Veronica smile, she felt as if she was a prey being watched by an eagle. She instinctively shrunk her neck. It's mainly because Sylvia thinks it's better to be early. Wu Yin glanced at Sylvia. He knew Sylvia wouldn't be able to answer and could only helplessly answer. But Your Highness Veronica, why are you here? You just called me by my name, and now you're calling me Your Highness. Veronica pursed her lips. She looked at Alvard as if he was a piece of trash and snorted. I didn't want to see him either, but since you're here, I thought I'd come over to say hello. Me? Wu Yin gasped. Huh? You're here because of me? Isn't that a matter of course? Veronica's lips curled into a smile. After all, I'm the one who told him to write a letter to Sylvia and have her bring you here. Wu Yin and Sylvia looked at each other. What? Veronica frowned and said with dissatisfaction, "Is that strange?" "Not that it's weird." Wu Yin scratched his cheeks, and he asked in an uncertain tone, "But why did you ask me to come over?" "After I left Ansari, something big happened in Ansari, didn't it?" Veronica's hawk-like eyes narrowed. "Let's have a good talk about this." Wu Yin finally understood why Lebecca got that kind of response when she reported to the knighthood about the corpse dragon army attacking the Ansari Dragon Academy. It was all part of Veronica's plan. Chapter 1392. That was a pretty heavy kick. Holding a handkerchief, Ao Dahua wiped his face as if he was washing his face, wiping away the nosebleed and the footprints on his face. At the same time, he added a regretful sentence. "If possible, I wish it was my dear daughter who kicked me." "Do you wish for your daughter to kick you that much?" Veronica lifted her foot coldly and stomped on the ground. Her iron boots collided with the ground and stirred up a small circle of dust. "I don't mind giving you a hand." Alvard shuddered and looked at Sylvia with tears streaming down his face. "I just want to take a good look at my daughter's face after not seeing her for a long time." "Is this too much?" "I don't mind letting you see," Sylvia said with a conflicted expression. "Can you please do it in a normal way?" "Yes. My way is very normal," Alvard said solemnly. "As a father, I want to take a good look at my daughter's face after not seeing her for a long time, right?" "That's true." "Then carefully touch every hair and facial features on that beautiful face and rub my face against it twice." "That's not wrong, right?" "If you dare do that, I won't mind giving you another nosebleed." Wu Yin turned his head away. He didn't want to see Alvard's smitten expression and Sylvia's clenched fists. Night King Alvard is definitely a daughter Khan. Furthermore, he was a daughter Khan who only had eyes for Sylvia. What's more, he was a super daughter Khan. Wu Yin has seen daughter Khan kings before. For example, Sylph's father, Emperor Kite of the Ailu Empire, is also a daughter Khan. However, Kite at least has the demeanor of a king. His actions are normal, and he even has the strength of a Tier 9 knight. No one would think that he doesn't look like a king. But this Alvard, demeanor of a king? None at all. Actions? Disgusting. Strength? So weak. How did this guy become the Night King? Did he rely on his royal bloodline? Fortunately, he didn't have any siblings. Otherwise, with the Wang family's power struggle, this fellow would definitely be cheated to the point that he would blame himself for not wearing his underwear properly. Wu Yin ignored Alvard, who was entangled with Sylvia, and shifted his attention to Veronica. What about Ursula? Why didn't he see her? During the Continental Conference, Yujura was the commander of Lorea's Holy Dragon Knights. He must be responsible for the security of Fenshin City. He should still be arranging manpower now, right? Veronica looked at Wu Yin with a faint smile. Ever since he lost to you in the Ansari Kingdom, Ursula seems to have become more energetic than before, but he also works harder than before, especially during training. He works harder than anyone else. He even said that he would defeat you the next time. That's really something to look forward to. Wu Yin licked the corner of his mouth, a hint of interest appearing in his wine-red eyes. Let's hope Ursula can be stronger. You're the only one in the Kingdom of Knights who can say something like that. Veronica shook her head with a chuckle. I see. You're the divine horseman who defeated Commander Ursula? Alvard, who had been fooling around in front of Sylvia, turned around with a serious expression on his face. When I learned that someone defeated Commander Ursula, I wanted to meet him. She was still thinking about when to meet him, but she didn't expect that. He came so quickly. Wu Yin didn't know what to say when he saw Eoward's serious expression. It was the Night King who wrote a letter to Sylvia asking her to bring him here. Even if it was Veronica's idea, she should at least know his identity, right? Could it be that he didn't know who the person Veronica wanted him to write to Sylvia was from the very beginning? Then why did that arrogant headmaid say that it was the Night King who sent him and Sylvia to greet her? There are too many things to complain about. I'm sorry. Wu Yin resisted the urge to sigh and nodded at the Night King. Then, the reason for summoning me is Her Highness Veronica's idea. The reason for summoning Sylvia is because she wants Sylvia to attend the Continental Congress. Then, why did you summon Yashur and Acker? Yashur, Blake, and Acker whelp? Veronica frowned when she heard Wu Yan's words. She looked at Alvord coldly. I didn't hear anything about this. This is my idea. Being stared at by Veronica's terrifying gaze, Alvord remained unmoved. I can't help it. My daughter is too outstanding. She took care of everything in the Continental Congress while I, as her father, had nothing to do. Besides, everyone is busy with work, but I have nothing to do. It's too boring. Boring? Wu Yan was speechless. In other words, Sylvia's pretty face also became powerless. You're just looking for someone to kill time with, aren't you? I'm also very curious about humanoid dragons. Alvord laughed out loud, causing Veronica, who was standing at the side, to explode in anger. Boom! The iron boots kicked up a gust of wind and mercilessly lashed out like a whip at Alvarez. Alvarez screamed as his body was sent flying like a giant piece of trash. He smashed into a nearby wall and was embedded into it with his face facing the wall. Sylvia couldn't help but recall the miserable days she had spent under Veronica, and her pretty face paled as she looked at her father's pitiful fate. As expected, Sister Veronica is still as violent and terrifying as ever. Forget about that bastard, Veronica said in an unquestionable tone as she crossed her arms in front of her chest. Actually, Roland, I called you here because I have a favor to ask of you. Favor? Wu Yan and Sylvia both turned to look at Veronica. Is it about the Corpse Dragon Army attacking the Ansari Dragon Academy? It's currently a busy time for the Continental Congress, even though I'd like to hear the reason behind it. Let's put it aside for now. Veronica waved her hand. I'm looking for you because of the Continental Congress. The Continental Congress. Wu Yan took a deep breath and adjusted his attitude to be serious. Looks like it won't be that easy. It's actually quite easy, provided that nothing happens. Veronica smiled in satisfaction when she saw Wu Yan turning serious. Actually, I want to ask you to attend the Continental Conference with us as a guard of the Wong family when Sylvia, that bastard, and I attend the Continental Congress together. Sylvia cried out in shock. Guard? Wu Yan focused on another word. What? There's danger in attending the Continental Congress? That's not it. It's not strange to bring a guard to the Continental Congress. It's just that there's a limit to the number of people attending. Veronica raised her hand to indicate that there's no need to worry. I have no choice but to ask you to attend as a guard. After all, there are many restrictions during the Continental Congress. One of the restrictions is that participants are not allowed to bring their dragon partners with them. There's even a magic barrier set up to prevent people from summoning dragons. Veronica narrowed her eyes at this point. But there's no rule that participants are not allowed to bring weapons. I see. Wu Yan immediately understood. The true strength of the Chivalry Kingdom lies in their dragons. The Continental Congress prohibits participants from bringing their dragon partners with them. There's also a magic barrier set up to prevent people from summoning dragons. However, it doesn't prohibit participants from bringing weapons with them. It's really unfair to the Chivalry Kingdom. Under such circumstances, even if Veronica was a powerful warrior, she wouldn't be able to provide a capable guard if something happened to her. Ursula was powerful, but without Galahad, she was just an ordinary girl. That's why Veronica asked Wu Yan to be her guard. After all, not only could Wu Yan fight evenly with Gulian, who was equipped with the paladin armor, but Fall was also in his body. He didn't need to bring it or summon it. It could be released from his body at any time. It's not against the rules of the Continental Congress. As a guard, he's the best choice. I'm fine with it. Wu Yan smiled. It's just that I'll change from being the guard of the cowardly princess to the guard of the two princesses. Veronica smiled when she heard that. Then, we'll leave our two princesses to you. Chapter 1393. After making up her mind about the guards, Veronica asked about the Corpse Grey Dragon Army's attack on the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy in detail. It had to be said that Veronica was indeed very concerned about Ansari. Be it the previous time when the Corpse Ash Dragon attacked Ansari City, or this time when the Corpse Ash Dragon Army attacked the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy. The princess had expressed her concern and treated it with caution. If not for this, Veronica would not have personally gone to Ansari City to check on the situation. This time, she also chose to get a direct description from Wu Yin instead of the whole story from the report. This also made Wu Yin admire Veronica's serious and careful attitude. It's rare for him to be so serious as he explained the entire incident from start to finish. This included the conversation with Mikaz. When Wu Yin mentioned Mikaz, Sylvia returned to her absent-minded state from a few days ago. She even ignored Veronica's occasional attempts to talk to her. Veronica's eyes revealed a hint of seriousness. The person Sylvia was most afraid of was Veronica. Now that Veronica tried to talk to Sylvia, Sylvia fell into a state of absent-mindedness and ignored her completely. This proved that Sylvia had something on her mind. It had reached a very serious stage. Veronica did not express much concern for her sister, but in terms of understanding of Sylvia, even Alvard, who was obsessed with his daughter, could not compare to Veronica. Therefore, Veronica looked at Sylvia deeply for a while before ending the conversation. Before leaving, Sylvia's footsteps were a little hesitant. His gaze also frequently shifted to Alvard, who was embedded in the wall. His ice blue eyes were like rippling water, and his expression was very uncertain. After a long while, he let out a long sigh and walked out of the hall. "Roland!" Wu Yin was about to follow her when Veronica suddenly called out to him. "Can you help Sylvia with her matters?" It sounded like a plea. Gulian, who was following behind Veronica, was shocked. Valiant and skilled in battle, with the title of Iron-Blooded Valkyrie, as the current pillar of the Knight's Kingdom of Lormon. When has Veronica ever spoken to others in such a tone? At least, Gulian had been protecting Veronica for so many years, but this was the first time he heard Veronica use such a tone. Furthermore, could Sylvia help them? What's going on here? Gulian was confused, but Wu Yin understood what Veronica meant. Come to think of it, Sylvia's condition must have worried Veronica as well. She's such a dishonest sister. Wu Yin smiled. Don't look at me like that. I've done a lot to enlighten Sylvia. He left this sentence without even turning his head. Wu Yin walked out of the hall. What a reliable man. I want to take him as my subordinate more and more. Veronica looked at the door. She narrowed her eyes. But isn't he a bit too close to Sylvia? When Veronica said this, her words were full of jealousy, completely forgetting that she was the one who asked for it. Even though Gul Yin's heart was frozen, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. Your Royal Highness. Cosette, who was waiting in the corridor, greeted Sylvia with his usual smile when he saw her walking out of the hall. However, Sylvia acted as if she didn't see Cosette. She walked past Cosette and continued forward. Your Royal Highness? The smile on Cosette's face disappeared and was replaced by a trace of worry. Her Royal Highness seems to have returned to how she was before. Lord Lune. Wu Yin walked out of the hall and was greeted by Cosette's worried face. Patting Cosette's shoulder to tell her not to worry, Wu Yin took a step forward and caught up with Sylvia, walking side by side with her. Wu Yin, Sylvia, and Cosette's footsteps echoed clearly in the hallway. The atmosphere between the three of them was rather heavy and oppressive. At the same time, Sylvia's heart felt oppressive as well. Sylvia felt a sense of loss as she listened to the footsteps beside her that seemed to be synchronizing with her footsteps. At the same time, her depressed heart also eased a little. Come to think of it, regardless of whether it was during the Corpse Ash Dragon's attack on Ansari, when Royal Sister came to the Academy, or when he faced Makawas on the top floor of the Temple Bell Tower, this person was always by his side. He even helped him a lot and became his spiritual pillar. Without him, she wouldn't have been able to obtain Fall and become a dragon cultivator. Without him, she wouldn't have been able to realize the weakness in her heart and bravely face the enemy. Without him, she wouldn't have been able to defeat Wall and obtain Royal Sister's approval. Without him, she wouldn't have been able to get a little comfort when Mikaos disturbed her heart. Now, he must have noticed her abnormality and worried him, right? Only now did Sylvia realize how much trouble she had caused for him and how much she relied on him. When would he be able to take charge of something on his own? Did anyone tell you that you're not good at hiding things? Just as Sylvia started complaining to herself, Wu Yin abruptly blurted out such a sentence that made Sylvia stunned. She couldn't help but turn around and look at Wu Yin. Wu Yin didn't look back. He walked forward and spoke as if he was talking to himself. As the princess of a knight's kingdom, I'm sure she must have a lot of worries. However, having worries and hiding them are two different things. Even Veronica has been looking for capable assistants and has been sending invitations to Becca, Corset, and me, hasn't she? His meaning was clear. He wanted Sylvia to learn to rely on others. Sylvia lowered her head, and her expression changed again. Not long after, it turned into bitterness. Why are you able to pull me back in time, every time? I can't help it, Wu Yin shrugged. Because I'm the cowardly princess's guardian. Cowardly? Sylvia couldn't refute him. Lifting her head, her clear blue eyes gazed at Wu Yan's side profile. Sylvia's eyes finally showed a pleading expression. Recently, I've been troubled by something. Wu Yin stopped and turned around to face Sylvia. Corset also looked at Wu Yin with gratitude. She then focused on Sylvia. Mikhaos. Sylvia didn't hide anything. She directly told Corset what had been troubling her. That man gave me a familiar feeling. I haven't seen him in a long time. A very familiar feeling that I haven't felt in a long time. Corset raised her eyebrows. You mean? Wu Yin asked with uncertainty. You suspect that Mikhaos is someone you know? I suspect. Sylvia clenched her teeth. Mikhaves is most likely my royal brother, Julius Loriaman. Wah! Corset sucked in a breath of cold air. Julius? Wu Yan's eyes narrowed. Julius? Loriaman. Although it was only a rumor, Wu Yin knew this person. The eldest son of a knight royal family. A former prince who violated a taboo by killing his own fall and was sentenced to death. In other words, this was someone who was supposed to be dead. Your Highness. Corset couldn't help but speak. But Prince Julius should have been executed already, right? That's why this is only my intuition. Sylvia replied with a heavy tone. But I don't understand. If my brother isn't dead, why would he become a pawn of the Empire? Why would he bring disaster to the Night Kingdom time and time again? Sylvia bit her lips. A pained expression appeared on her face. After all, Julius wasn't just Sylvia's brother. He was also someone she had always admired since she was young. If such an existence stood on the opposite side of her, the pain in her heart would be unimaginable. Your Highness. Corset worriedly held Sylvia's slender shoulders. Wu Yin looked at Sylvia's pained expression and lowered his head. His eyes flickered with a thoughtful light. Chapter 1394. Night. There was no such thing as darkness in the night sky of Fantion City. This was because every night, the entire Vatian city would be lit up with all kinds of colors. The colorful lights illuminated the entire Vatian city and the night sky of Vatian City. In this world, dragons that could fly were almost everywhere in the knighthood of Lorimon. Because Fantion City was the capital of the knighthood of Lorimon, some airships would visit from time to time at night. Therefore, in order to distinguish whether a visitor was a friend or a foe, the illumination of the night sky became a necessary measure. In the night sky of Fantion City, countless lights moved back and forth in the sky like beams of light. The dragon knights of the Lorimon Knight Legion who were patrolling would occasionally ride on their holy dragons and expose themselves to the lights. Then, they would flash past and continue patrolling. Usually, there would be lamps in Fantion City that illuminated the night sky at night, but there weren't as many as there were these days. Now, due to the Continental Congress, there were more lamps that illuminated the night sky, almost exposing the entire night sky to the light. Under the illumination of the lights, in the distance, an extremely large airship was slowly moving towards Fantion City. It was an airship that was much larger than Veronica's Sylvanus. Its appearance wasn't as prominent as Sylvanus's. It was just an extremely ordinary ship shape. However, the appearance of a ship was very luxurious, like a luxurious airship that had been greatly enlarged. It was also covered in layers of steel. Although it didn't look as elegant as Sylvanus, it had its own aura. At the top of this airship, a flag was fluttering in the wind, causing those who had discovered the whereabouts of the airship to gather. After the spotlights on the airship shone on this flag, it was as if the alarm had been lifted, and all of them returned to their posts. It continued to wander in the sky. Clearly, Fantion City had tacitly approved of the airship's entry, because this flag was the flag of the Cypheros Empire. Below the flag, on the side of the airship, a large family crest was engraved there. That was the crest of a famous noble family in the Cypheros Empire, the Witthausen family. The emperor of the Cypheros Empire declined to attend this year's Continental Conference, citing his old age. Let the current head of the Witthausen family attend the Continental Conference as the representative of the Cypheros Empire. At this time, in front of the deck of this airship, a handsome man with blonde hair and a pair of gray eyes stood side by side with a silver-haired man wearing a silver mask. He looked down at the city of Fantion. The silver-haired man with the mask was Makawos. As for the handsome man with blonde hair, he was the current head of the Witthausen family, the representative of the Cypheros Empire who was about to attend the Continental Conference, Klaus. At the same time, Klaus was also Makawos' protector. In other words, Mykators was helping Klaus, and Klaus was Mykators' superior. The capital of the Knights' Kingdom of Lorraine, Klaus held a glass of red wine. A leisurely smile hung on his face. She does look pretty, but unfortunately, she doesn't fit my taste. Klaus raised his head and looked at the holy dragons hovering in the sky. A blurry color appeared in his eyes. On the contrary, the dragons are the ones that fit my taste the most. Look at how they fly, their majestic bodies, their powerful strength. It's really irresistible. Enough with the nonsense. Mykators withdrew his gaze, turned around, and coldly said, "Have you prepared everything?" Klaus sighed when he saw that Mykators didn't show the slightest bit of respect towards his superior. Still as cold as ever, but this is also a beauty that belongs to you. Klaus chuckled with a somewhat disgusting comment. The Arcanitech device, excavated from the ancient ruins, is already being adjusted inside the airship. The experts are adding Millennium Chi Hua crystal to it, preparing to activate it. Millennium Chi Hua crystal? Mykators nodded. The so-called Millennium Chi Hua crystal didn't refer to the Dragon Chi Hua crystal that the dragons secrete regularly, but a type of fossil. It's a precious fossil formed by a dragon's corpse after thousands of years underground. Just like the Dragon Chi Hua crystal, the Millennium Chi Hua crystal is also a type of crystal that contains mana. However, compared to the Dragon Chi Hua crystal, the Millennium Chi Hua crystal contains a lot of mana. Some of it is even comparable to the mana of a holy dragon. Because of that, the Millennium Chi Hua crystal is usually used as fuel for Arcanitech ships or airships. It's very rarely used in Arcanitech devices. If a magical device required the use of the Millennium Chi Hua crystal, it meant that the magical device's function was definitely not ordinary. Based on the conversation between Klaus and Mykators, it seems like there's a device that requires Millennium Chi Hua crystal in the airship. So how's the progress? The assembly is almost complete, and we are now entering the final inspection stage. However, because that device uses the 1,000-year Chi Hua crystal as its power source, we must pay more attention. The final inspection will definitely take a lot of time. A lot of time? Mykators frowned. You should know that we don't have much time left. We can afford to wait for a night, right? Klaus shook his head with a smile. We should be able to officially activate the device tomorrow afternoon for the experiment. Is that so? Makawos' expression relaxed. He looked down at the city of Fantion again. That's good. Why are you so worried? Klaus swirled the wine in his glass. I also need the help of that devil Dao device, although I still have a dubious attitude. Klaus looked at Mykators with a smile on his face. However, the look in his eyes gradually turned strange. Can that device really awaken the last descendant of the Holy Dragon royal family, the young Dragonyak, and reveal her true form? Hearing that, Makawos shot a cold glare at Klaus. Are you doubting me? No, of course not. Klaus quickly waved his hand. Of course I believe you, my dear Mykators. You don't have to worry so much, Klaus. You just have to believe in me. Mykotaurus snorted. As long as you do as I say, it's only a matter of time before you obtain the power of the Dragon Clan. With the Dragon Clan as your backing, the throne of the Emperor that you've always dreamed of will be within your reach. Klaus' eyes flashed with greed when he heard the words throne of the Emperor, but he quickly hid it. I look forward to the day you fulfill your promise, Mykotaurus. Klaus looked up at the holy dragons dancing in the sky. His smile widened, and he seemed to be in a trance. Truly beautiful to the point of being speechless. Just that powerful posture alone has already conquered me, not to mention that strength that far surpasses that of a human. Dragon Clan, you'll become mine sooner or later and help me ascend to the throne. Seeing that Klaus was in a trance and intoxicated by the soaring holy dragon, Makawos silently turned around and walked towards the interior of the ship. My dear Mykotaurus, Klaus asked without looking back. Where are you going? Prepare the materials for the experiment. Mika's reply was short and concise. How are you going to conduct the experiment without the experiment materials? Klaus immediately revealed a satisfied smile. Then I'll have to trouble you to capture the experiment materials that are jumping around. Mykotaurus ignored Klaus and walked out of the deck. He entered the interior of the airship that was slowly descending. Walking along the dimly lit corridor, Makawos gently raised his head. On the mask, the pair of eyes that were exposed in the eye sockets suddenly flashed with a fierce glint. Shortly after, the pupils in his eyes completely changed. They looked like a snake, a tiger, a wolf, a fox. They were a pair of dragon eyes. The corners of Mykovez's mouth curled up slightly. That cold temperament suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a ghostly, extremely evil smile. The last descendant of the Holy Dragon Clan of Avalon, and that white dragon, Yakloon, wait for me. Chapter 1395. Phew. Lying on the bed of a certain VIP room in Fantion City, Wu Yin sprawled out on the bed. He gazed at the luxurious ceiling and he exhaled. He didn't know if he was tired or relaxed. Tick-tock, 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 sound echoed in the quiet room. It's so clear that it caught Wu Yan's attention. Wu Yin reached out his hand and rummaged around his clothes. He found the source of the sound and held it in his hand before raising it in front of him. It was a silver pocket watch with the emblem of the royal family of Lorimon carved on it. It wasn't very luxurious, but it was obviously not ordinary. It was the Dragon Knight's proof. Only the rider of the Holy Dragon, who had the title of Dragon Knight, could receive this gift from the royal family of Lorimon. The initial goal of all the dragon breeders of Lorimon was to let their fall evolve into a holy dragon and obtain this silver pocket watch. Back then, Veronica visited Ansari and made a duel with Wu Yin. In the duel, Wu Yin defeated the captain of the Lorimon Holy Dragon Knights, who was once known as the strongest Holy Dragon Knight, Ujura Sarver. With Veronica's approval, Salvin received the Dragon Knight certificate and became a true Dragon Knight. But it wasn't strange. Even if one didn't talk about strength, the White Dragon's burning flame was far stronger than the Holy Dragons of the dragon race. It was different from the other holy dragons in terms of form. It was very elegant. However, the mana released at that time was definitely more powerful than that of an ordinary holy dragon. Holy dragon riders could receive the Dragon Knight's proof and become Dragon Knights. Just exposing the white dragon's burning flame to others was enough to give Wu Yin such a reputation. Not to mention, the white dragon's burning flame was stronger than any other holy dragon. Plus, he defeated Ujura. In fact, Wu Yin was called Dragon Knight. That was a bit inappropriate. After all, Ujura, who was defeated by Wu Yin, also had the title of Holy Dragon Knight. No matter what, Wu Yin should at least have the same glory as the Holy Dragon Knight. It's a pity that the title is reserved for those who receive the Holy Knight armor from the Holy Dragons. Wu Yin didn't use the Holy Knight armor from start to finish. That's why, no matter how strong the White Dragon's burning flame was, Wu Yin couldn't get the Holy Dragon Knight title. Of course, Wu Yin didn't think much of it. Titles and whatnot. Once he leaves this world, what's the use of them? It's better to get this pocket watch. He thought so. Wu Yin also opened the lid of the Dragon Knight certificate so that he could see the structure clearly. With the passage of time, minute by minute, the operation of the dial was imprinted into his eyes. It's already nighttime. Looking at the time, Wu Yin put away the silver pocket watch and looked at the ceiling again. The continent's conference was about to start. There were still 2 days left. On the night of the day after tomorrow, a group of representatives from the top factions of Eluxtran would be holding a conference in Fanteon City. They would be discussing the future of the continent. At that time, Wu Yin would also be attending the conference as a personal guard of the royal family. As a guard, Wu Yin naturally didn't have a right to speak. He also couldn't be like Sylvia, who would become a key figure of the kingdom in the future. However, if news of Wu Yin's attendance at the conference spread throughout the Knight's Empire, it would be a boost to his reputation. The conference was so important that only a limited number of guards could attend. Knight Loriaman's royal family choosing a guard was equivalent to picking 1 or 2 out of the millions of citizens of the Knight's Kingdom. It indirectly proved that the person had the most outstanding ability among the millions of citizens of the Knight's Kingdom. At that time, Wu Yan's reputation would spread even wider. One day, he might even surpass the silent Saintess Ursula. However, that was also meaningless to Wu Yan. It was still the same thing. He would leave this world sooner or later. Reputation wasn't as important as a silver pocket watch. As he thought about it, Wu Yin felt a bit sleepy. He blinked twice and gradually closed his eyes. However, before he could completely close his eyes, a knock on the door woke Wu Yin up. Wu Yin got up from the bed and patted his cheeks. "Come in." "Excuse me." The door was silently opened. The next moment, Corset's cute and playful appearance appeared outside. "Corset." Wu Yin turned his head and looked at the door. "What is it?" "Lord Lune." Corset smiled calmly. "Tonight, the Night King will be holding a banquet. I am here to invite you to attend." "Banquet?" Wu Yin felt a headache coming on just by listening to this line. "Can I not attend?" Hearing this, even Cosette didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Since the Night King had already given the order to meet him, there was probably only one person in the entire Lorraine knighthood who would reject him with such an impatient expression. Apart from Veronica, Sylvia, and the others who knew everything about the Night King world, there was probably only one person in the entire Lorraine knighthood. "I don't think so." Corset lowered her posture and rolled her eyes at Wu Yan. The Night King personally summoned him. Even if Lord Lune is impatient, he has to go up and play along. Like you said, it's perfunctory. Wu Yan rubbed his forehead. "There is no other way. I have to go, yes." Corset smiled from ear to ear. "But before that, please take a bath in the bathroom." "Taking a bath for a meal? The Wang family sure has a hard time." Wu Yan shook his head and stood up. "Then let's go." "Yes." Corset bowed and led Wu Yan out the door. Wu Yan didn't notice that the moment Corset turned around, a mischievous look appeared in her purple eyes. Inside the city of Fontaine, in a bathhouse the size of a lake, steam filled the space. The fragrance of the bath lotion rose from the steaming water and mixed with the air. The entire bathhouse was filled with the refreshing scent of a forest. At this moment, a young girl was lying in the bathtub that was as vast as a lake. She was completely naked. More than half of her voluptuous upper body was floating in the water. Her fair body was faintly discernible in the water. Under the influence of the steam, a faint blush appeared. Her long golden hair was coiled up, and her pure white neck shone with a pearl-like luster in the bathhouse. She was extremely beautiful. Leaning against the pillar under the statue of the first Night King in the middle of the bathhouse, Sylvia didn't wash her body. Her icy blue eyes were unfocused and unfocused. It was clear that Sylvia was still thinking about Mikhails and Julius. Sylvia's mood was very complicated. She hoped that Mikhails was Julius, but she also hoped that Mikhails wasn't Julius. She was conflicted to the extreme. If Mikhails was Julius, then her brother wasn't dead. That was definitely something to be happy about. But at the same time, if Mikhails was Julius, then it proved that the person who repeatedly sabotaged Ansari and worked for the Safar's empire was her brother. That was something Sylvia didn't want to see. But Sylvia also hoped that her brother wasn't dead. Because of this, her mind kept drifting back and forth in this conflicted state, tormenting Sylvia's nerves. Sigh. Sylvia let out a complicated sigh. She turned her body to the side, and her voluptuous breasts rippled through the water, making people uneasy. At this time, a voice echoed outside the bathhouse. "We're here, Cosette." Sylvia came back to her senses and stood up. "It's time to go out." However, another voice rang out, causing Sylvia's alluring body, which was half exposed above the water, to freeze on the spot. "I say, Cosette, don't tell me you want to serve me in the bath." This voice. Sylvia's eyes widened in disbelief. Sylvia had only known the owner of this voice for about 3 months, but whether it was the voice or the owner, to Sylvia, they were both deeply etched in her heart. Therefore, it was impossible for Sylvia to be mistaken. That was clearly Wu Yan's voice. Chapter 1396. Rune? Sylvia was confused. "Why is Wu Yan here?" "That's not right. There's a dinner party tonight. Alvarez probably invited Wu Yan as well. Sylvia can guess that much. It's not strange for him to bathe before a dinner party with the royal family. But why would the other party come here when she was bathing? There's more than one bathroom in Fannin City. This bathroom is reserved for the royal family. Logically speaking, Wu Yan shouldn't be here. Did I hear wrong?" It was a pity that the conversation that followed completely shattered Sylvia's fantasies. "Lord Rune, the dinner party is about to begin. You should hurry." "I know. Can you please leave first?" "Why? Isn't it obvious? Don't you know the difference between men and women?" "Ah, Lord Rune, don't you want me to serve you in a bath? Although it sounds very good, isn't this a male bathroom?" "This bathroom is special. Not only is it the largest bathroom in Fannin City, there's no distinction between men and women." "Lord Rune, don't worry." "Huh? Then I won't see a girl bathing in there, right? Since this bathroom is so special, it's naturally not a place anyone can enter. Then can you let me in?" "It's fine. I don't think so. Why don't you take me to a normal male bathroom?" "Lord Rune is a VIP. How can you go to a normal bathroom?" But, all right. Lord Rune, leave it to me." "Forget it. Do as you wish." This time, Sylvia finally understood. It's all Cosette's doing. Sylvia trembled with anger. As Sylvia's personal maid, Cosette was naturally the one who helped Sylvia take off her clothes when she bathed. In other words, Cosette knew that Sylvia was bathing in the bathroom. She even brought Wu Yan here. Despicable Cosette. Sylvia gritted her teeth. Then, "Lord Rune, please go in." Yes. The rather helpless voice traveled into the bathroom from afar, causing Sylvia to finally react. Looking at the blurry figure in the white mist that was getting closer and closer to the bathroom door, Sylvia panicked. Without a second thought, Sylvia stomped her feet like a mermaid in the bathtub. Drawing a beautiful arc, it swam past the central stone pillar and hid behind it. At the same time, Wu Yan also entered the bath. He swam to the pillar and leaned against it. She breathed softly. "It smells good. It doesn't seem like a bath gel," Wu Yan said when he smelled the fragrance in the air. Could it be that a girl just took a bath here? His careless words had hit the nail on the head. Sylvia's heart skipped a beat, and her heartbeat sped up. Her pretty face turned red with aplomb. Now, Wu Yan leaned on one side of the pillar, while Sylvia leaned on the other. The two of them were separated by a pillar and had their backs facing each other. They were even bathing in the same bath. Sylvia blushed at the thought of this. She couldn't help but start imagining Wu Yan's body. Unfortunately, Wu Yan once bathed with Sylvia on Sylvanus. When Sylvia thought about it, Wu Yan's body became clearer and clearer in her mind. Sylvia was so embarrassed that she wanted to die. She, as a princess, was actually fantasizing about the naked body of man. She was too shameless. Sylvia couldn't help but imagine Wu Yan's body. The blood in her body is boiling due to her embarrassment and anger. Sylvia's pretty face is getting redder and redder. It's worrying if she's going to faint just like that. What happened next made Sylvia faint. Wu Yin, who was enjoying himself with his eyes closed, heard the sound of someone entering the water. He opened his eyes in confusion and looked towards the source of the sound. Wu Yan's eyes widened, and he subconsciously covered his nose. An extremely beautiful and curvy figure appeared in front of Wu Yan without the slightest bit of concealment. Wu Yan's eyes were imprinted on it. Her skin was as white as powder. Her curves were alluring. Her full and round breasts swam through the water and gradually sank into the bath. However, they couldn't be covered by the water surface. She was clearly holding a towel in her hand, but she did not use it to cover her body. Instead, she gently rubbed it against her face as if she was wiping her sweat. This kind of action caused her perfectly round eyes to undulate, causing one's face to tighten and one's heartbeat to accelerate to the limit. Cosette. Wu Yin raised his head. He tried to avoid the sudden shock that might have caused him to overreact. This perk is too much. Lord Lune, you didn't do this when you bathed with Her Royal Highness in Sylvanus. Cosette shook her smooth shoulders as if she was about to cry. Is it that uncomfortable to bathe with me? Uncomfortable. It is indeed uncomfortable. Wu Yin began to take deep breaths to suppress the uneasiness in his heart. This stimulation is too strong. Is that so? As if she changed her expression, Cosette's sobbing expression was replaced by a flower-like smile. Lord Lune, there's something even more exciting. Something even more exciting? Wu Yin instinctively froze. At the same time, the sound of water splashing entered his ears. Cosette came to Wu Yan's side without any explanation. Before Wu Yin could react, her body suddenly fell into his arms. Her pair of plump breasts pressed against him without any hesitation. Her red lips exhaled a sweet breath. Her purple eyes flickered as she whispered in a blurred voice. Lord Lune, let me give you a massage. Wu Yin subconsciously hugged the petite figure that threw herself into his arms. Feeling the soft touch at such close distance, his taut heartstrings snapped in an instant. Gently sliding his hands on Cosette's soft back, one hand down and the other hand up, Wu Yin looked into Cosette's blurred eyes. Traces of evil thoughts appeared in his eyes. How about letting me give you a massage? Before she finished her words, Wu Yin had already begun his massage. Cosette suddenly gasped for breath. In the silent bathroom, Cosette's seductive panting continued to reverberate and became louder and louder. Wu Yin and Cosette's bodies were getting closer and closer. Just as the two of them were about to merge together, a voice that was filled with shame, anger, and hysteria resounded like thunder. Stop! Sylvia couldn't bear it any longer and rushed out from behind the stone pillar. In a moment, she arrived beside Wu Yin and Cosette and forcefully separated them. Shameless! Shameless! Her pretty face was as red as a bright rose. Her fair body trembled violently. She grabbed Cosette's shoulders and shook her. I didn't expect my personal maid to be such a person, Your Highness. Cosette's expression was one of astonishment. But if one looked closely, one would discover a trace of a smile in her clear eyes. Why are you here? Why am I here? Sylvia was enraged. Isn't it because... Before Sylvia could finish her sentence, Cosette pushed Sylvia with a smile. My hand slipped. Sylvia cried out in surprise. Her naked body fell back, and in the next second, she fell on a robust body. It's Wu Yin who still hasn't recovered from Sylvia's appearance. Of course, this wasn't the most coincidental thing. What was truly coincidental was that their lips just so happened to be overlapping at this moment. Sylvia's eyes were wide open and filled with shock. Wu Yan's mouth was wide open and his jaw almost fell to the ground. But when he opened his mouth, it just happened to open Sylvia's lips. Sylvia's tongue slid into Wu Yan's mouth like a snake released from its cage and tangled with Wu Yan's tongue. Sylvia's eyes opened even wider. Wu Yan's mouth also opened even wider. Just like that, the two muddle-headed started to entangle their tongues. Ugh! In the bathroom, new gasps turned into ripples in the air. Chapter 1397. Fantion City, in a luxurious lounge. In a vast area, circular pillars were arranged along the walls in an orderly manner, all the way up to the high ceiling. In the lounge, sofas, tables, and chairs, as well as a thick fireplace, occupied an insignificant corner of the lounge. In front of him, a tall door stood. The dining hall of the royal family of knights was right behind that door. Wu Yin was standing in the lounge. Corset was helping him tidy up the collar of his tuxedo-like suit. Yashur was also doing the same. It seemed that he was not used to this suit. Only Yak was still staring at the door of the dining hall with full spirit, saliva dripping from the corner of her mouth. Obviously, this gluttonous dragon was already itching for the food at the banquet. Sigh. Wu Yin let Corset sway his body. His shoulders drooped down as if he was exhausted. He scratched his cheek. Dining with the royal family is really tiring. It had been 2 to 3 hours since Corset had informed him that he needed to attend the luncheon and had come out of his room. In these 2 to 3 hours, Wu Yin was not only asked to take a bath in the bathroom, but he also had to pick out the clothes to wear at the banquet. After much difficulty, he finally picked out a set of clothes from the pile in the lounge. Because of his appearance, he was swayed by Corset for nearly half an hour. It's just a meal. Is there a need to go to this extent? Does a royal family have to prepare 2 to 3 hours in advance every time they have a meal? That will shorten my lifespan, right? Really, Yashur couldn't help but complain. But, after all, it's a meal with the royal family. It's only right to be cautious. Master Yashur was right this time, Master Loon. Corset replied with a smile, while tidying up Wu Yan's clothes. There's a saying that goes, accompanying a king is like accompanying a tiger. In the past, there were people who left a bad impression on the royal family because of their appearance. Because of this, the royal family was angry and ordered to punish them. So it's necessary to be cautious. Do you have any impression? Wu Yin couldn't help but recall Alvard's attitude and behavior towards Sylvia in the audience hall. He immediately rejected the idea. No, I think so. This night, King won't feel the slightest bit of displeasure because of his appearance. Hearing Wu Yan's very certain statement, Yashu and Yak were somewhat startled. Only Cosette chuckled softly. As Sylvia's personal maid, Corset naturally knew what kind of person Alvard was, and also understood the meaning behind Wu Yan's words. Wasn't the Night King Orward the most important person to pay attention to his appearance? Before long, in the corridor beside the lounge, an icy blue figure slowly walked in, accompanied by the sound of high heels clicking on the ground. It was as if an ice-blue lotus had bloomed in the lounge. Almost instantly, everyone's eyes were attracted to that figure. She was wearing an ice-blue dress. Her smooth shoulders were exposed, and under the illumination of the lounge's lights, there was a slight arc of light. Her slender thighs rubbed against the hem of her dress, faintly discernible. It made one's blood boil and their heartbeats quicken. Her long golden hair was tied into a bun, and the cold color of the dress set off the luster of her golden hair and her fair skin, making her dazzling and moving. As the other person approached, her presence in the air gradually increased, and her intoxicating figure was reflected in everyone's eyes. So beautiful. The person who came was Sylvia. See? Sylvia. Yak opened her mouth wide in astonishment. Was this person who was as beautiful as a daughter of a wealthy family, Sylvia, who had always been strict, aggressive, and strict in her actions? So beautiful. Yashur was also stunned by the sight and gave such a comment without hesitation. Even Wu Yin was stunned on spot. Looking at the flower-like Sylvia, he couldn't react for a long time. What you all doing? Sylvia glanced at herself awkwardly as everyone stared at her blankly. Is there a problem with my dress? It's not a problem with the dress, Your Highness. Corset, who appeared behind Sylvia, grinned and whispered into Sylvia's ear. Everyone thinks you're too beautiful. Beautiful? Sylvia stared blankly for a moment. Then, just like the Sylvia that everyone knew, her pretty face instantly blushed because she couldn't bear the shyness that surged into her heart. It's really not bad. Coming back to his senses, Wu Yin didn't hide his praise. Were it often in the future, hearing that, as if cooked, Sylvia's cheeks were dyed red. When she saw Wu Yan's gaze, Even her ears were red. She wanted to dig a hole and crawl into it. Seeing Sylvia blushing like a rose and wanting to run away, Wu Yin found it funny. Not long ago, the two of them were naked in the same bathroom, in the same bath. Wu Yin already expected Sylvia to act this way. Thinking of this, the memory of the bathroom also came back to Wu Yan's mind. Because Corset pushed her, Sylvia kissed him like a dog's blood. In the end, because both of them were immersed, the two of them unknowingly kissed in the bath naked for nearly 10 minutes. In the end, when they finally reacted, Sylvia's face was already red as she screamed and ran away. This ripple finally came to an end. Given Sylvia's personality, being able to stand face to face with him should be her limit, right? Thinking of this, Wian also looked at Sylvia. Seeing Sylvia's blushing face, he helplessly spread his hands. All right, let's stop the small talk here. The Night King is already waiting for everyone. Corset arrived at the door in front of the lounge and pushed it open. Your Highness, Lord Rune, Lord Yashur, Ike Chan, please come with me. Fantion City, Wong family's dining hall, at the head of a long table that was more than 6 to 7 meters long. Night King overgrinned as he watched Wu Yan's group enter the hall and laughed out loud. You're finally here? I've been waiting for you for a long time. Night King. Yashur's body stiffened as he looked at Alvarez, who was laughing in an amicable manner. Now, the person who was laughing in front of him was the king of this country. As an ordinary civilian, Yashur's nervousness in front of the king of the Night Kingdom of Lorea is unimaginable. Don't be so reserved. Overt seemed to have seen through Yashur's nervousness and nodded as if comforting him. This is just a banquet, relax. Yashur, relax. Sylvia opened one of her eyes. Your submissive behavior is the real disrespect. As a student of the Ansari Kingdom's Dragon Riding Academy, you should be more at ease. Sylvia, you're here too? Before Sylvia could finish her reprimanding words, a voice as steady as steel rang out from behind her. This voice. Sylvia's body stiffened as if she was a clockwork doll. Her neck made cracking sounds as she turned around. Then, her entire face turned pale. Should I say it's an unexpected reaction? Behind Sylvia, Veronica, who was dressed in her usual armor, stared at Sylvia with her eagle-like eyes. She curled her lips in dissatisfaction. As expected of a cowardly princess, why? Sylvia took a few steps back and stuttered like a mouse that saw a cat. Royal sister? Oh, you. Wu Yin covered his eyes as he couldn't bear to look at Sylvia. Weren't you saying something about being at ease? Sylvia lowered her head awkwardly and couldn't say anything. All right, the banquet should begin. Overt, who was sitting at the head of the table, spoke up. Everyone, take your seats. Wu Yin, Sylvia, Veronica, Yak, and Yashur looked at each other and sat around the table. Chapter 1398. Actually, I've been wanting to meet you for a long time now. At the start of the banquet, Alward said this sentence. Roland, Yashur, Miss Yak, it's all thanks to your efforts that Ansari was able to survive the invasion of the Corpse Ash Dragon. Without you, the entire Ansari would have been razed to the ground. Albert stood up and bowed deeply to Wu Yin, Yashur, and Yak. As the Night King, I would like to express my gratitude to you on behalf of the entire Ansari. Imperial Father, Veronica and Sylvia were both stunned. Night King, Yashur was shocked as well. Even Wu Yin and Yak were shocked. As the king of the Night Kingdom of Lorimon, the Night King status was undoubtedly the highest in the kingdom. And now, this king was bowing to a group of students who weren't even nobles and could only be considered as commoners. This impact left Veronica and Sylvia flabbergasted. Look at you. Is this how a king should behave? Veronica frowned. No matter what, you are still the Night King. Do you think others will be happy to see a king who lowers his head so casually? This isn't a casual matter. Faced with Veronica's accusation, Alvarez retorted. Roland has the ability to defeat Commander Usula and will be our bodyguard in the future. His abilities have been praised by you, and his future achievements will not be below Commander Usula's or even yours. Miss AI Ku is the Dragon Clan's empress. Her status is at least equal to us. Furthermore, Yashu is Miss AI Ku's master. Don't tell me that these three people are not worthy of my salute as the Night King to express my gratitude. Veronica was speechless. Those who are eating at the same table with us can be said to be the future of our chivalry nation. It was rare for Alvard to display the attitude of a king, as he solemnly warned. I also hope that you can put down your pride and improve together with the future pillars of our kingdom. Do you understand? Veronica didn't say anything else. Sylvia nodded in agreement with Alvard's words. Seeing this, Wu Yan's impression of the Night King rose by several levels. No matter how much Alvarez praised the three of them, other than Yak, Wu Yan and Yashur didn't have high statuses. This was a fact. In this world, Wu Yan's identity was said to be Rebecca's bodyguard, but to put it bluntly, he was just a servant of a noble. Yashur was even more of a commoner. Under such circumstances, Alvarez was still able to put down his colored glasses to look at them and put down his pride. It was hard to judge whether or not he had the bearing of a king by bowing and thanking them. But from an individual's point of view, this kind of performance was definitely enough to win the favor of others. This Howard, although he was mediocre, he was not muddle-headed. There's still some advantages. You're being too courteous. One doesn't hit a smiling person. Wu Yan nodded in response. Just like Her Highness Veronica, as a princess, she should protect the kingdom. As students of the Ansari Dragon Riding Academy, we should protect Ansari. Her Highness Sylvia also stood up when the corpse gray dragon attacked the academy. Shouldn't she be rewarded? Of course, I won't forget how active my daughter is. Alvarez first looked at Wu Yan with praise before laughing out loud. I already knew how much effort Sylvia put in to protect the academy from the report. She will definitely be rewarded. No, no such thing. Sylvia lowered her head in embarrassment. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes and smiled. He seemed to be teasing or joking when he said that. The Night King really dotes on his daughters. Of course. Alvarez puffed up his chest and replied in high spirits. My daughters are the most outstanding existences in the world. Of course I dote on them. This guy. Sylvia felt even more embarrassed. She even gritted her teeth. Even Veronica felt uncomfortable. She stared at Alvard with her sharp, eagle-like eyes, wishing she could peel off a layer of flesh from his body. On the other hand, Wu Yan's smile deepened. I really envy Her Highness Veronica and Her Highness Sylvia. With such a doting father, no matter how grave the crimes they committed, the Night King would take responsibility for them, right? They are my most complacent children. Which father in the world wouldn't take responsibility for his children who caused trouble? Alvarez spoke without hesitation as though he was floating in the air. No matter how grave the crimes they committed, as long as I'm here, I won't let anything happen to them. Hearing this, Veronica and Sylvia couldn't help but smile despite their embarrassment. Yashur and Yak also had a whole new level of respect for this seemingly amiable uncle. Only Wu Yan's smile slowly faded. That's true. Which father wouldn't take responsibility for his children who caused trouble? Wu Yan mumbled to himself as if he was chewing on those words. His words sounded like a thunderclap. So, even if Prince Julius didn't kill his own dragon, but someone else's, with the Night King's love for his children, he would still protect him, right? The air in the entire venue seemed to freeze when these words were spoken. It sank and instantly caused a cold current to surge in everyone's heart, causing everyone present to freeze on the spot. Alvard's smile froze on his face. Veronica, Sylvia, Yak, Yashur, and the others were also stunned by the sudden shocking words, frozen in their seats in a daze. Looking straight at the frozen Alvarez, Wu Yan's eyes slowly narrowed. It seems that Prince Julius isn't dead. Wah! Veronica's expression changed. Father, Sylvia finally understood the meaning behind Wu Yan's words. She looked at Alvarez with a complicated expression. You, what nonsense are you spouting? Alvarez completely lost his cool. Sweat dripped from his forehead, but he pretended to be angry and slammed the table as he stood up. Are you doubting the fairness of the royal knight family? Rather than saying that I'm doubting the fairness of the royal knight family, it's more accurate to say that, Your Majesty, I'm just doubting that with your personality, you wouldn't be able to mercilessly sentence your own son. Wu Yin ignored Alvarez's barely maintained dignity and once again spoke words that shocked everyone except Sylvia. Do you know that your son, Julius, might have already become a citizen of the Cypheros Empire? He might even be the mastermind behind the Corpse Dragon's attack on the Ansari state, almost destroying the Ansari state. What? This time, Veronica, Yashur, and Yak all lost their composure and cried out in shock. That's impossible. Alvarez also lost his voice. I've already banished Julius. Exile. Wu Yin raised his head. In other words, Prince Julius isn't dead? Only then did Alvarez realize what he had said. His face paled. Royal brother. Sylvia was dazed. He's really not dead. You bastard. Veronica abruptly stood up and walked in front of Alvard. She grabbed the Night King's collar and shouted loudly. Do you know that you're giving the Royal Knight family a chance to suffer heavy losses? Just the fact that the Dragonslayer Julius was still alive was enough to cause a huge uproar in the Night Kingdom. If others were to find out that the Night Kingdom's king was biased and didn't execute his own son, allowing the Dragonslayer to live in this world, the Night Kingdom might descend into chaos. The Cypheros Empire, which was dissatisfied with the Night Kingdom's ruling position and was eyeing the Night Kingdom covetously, could use this as a pretext to cause a heavy blow to the Night Kingdom. Everyone present could imagine what kind of crisis the Knight's country would face at that time. Alvarez was already in a state of confusion. I'm not condemning your actions, Your Majesty Night King. As a father, you are undoubtedly the greatest. Wu Yin stood up. However, as a king, you're not qualified to do so. Excuse me. Wu Yin turned around and walked out of the hall. TSK. Veronica left Ervard behind and walked out as well. Sylvia hurriedly brought Corset along as well. Only Yashur and Yak were left in the hall, not knowing what to do. Alvarez sat on the ground with a dazed expression. After a long while, he sighed. Chapter 1399. Outside the hall, in the hallway, Gullian stood there like a statue, waiting for Veronica. As the captain of Veronica's personal guards, Gullian had to protect Veronica 24 hours a day. Even when Veronica was sleeping, Gullian had to stay close to her and pay attention to her surroundings at all times. Currently, the royal family was entertaining guests. Although Gullian didn't need to stand guard at this time, he still had to be on standby in case Veronica needed his help. Not long after, the doors to the hall opened, attracting Gullian's attention. Under Gullian's gaze, Wu Yin walked out of the hall. He didn't even look at Gullian as he walked forward. Sensing that something was wrong with the atmosphere, Gullian reflexively raised his vigilance. Then, the door of the venue was open again, and Veronica, Sylvia, and Corset walked out with very serious expressions. Your Highness Veronica? Gullian asked in confusion. Veronica shook her head at Gullian. She turned around and quickened her pace. She caught up to Wu Yin with Sylvia and Corset. What's going on here? Veronica asked straightforwardly. Not only is Julius not dead, but he's also the mastermind behind the Corpse Dragon. Where did you get this information? What? Julius isn't dead? He's a mastermind behind a Corpse Dragon. Before Wu Yin could respond, Gullian's expression changed. Gullian's cold expression collapsed first, and his expression changed drastically. What? What are you talking about? How could Julius not be dead? How could he be the mastermind behind the Corpse Dragon? Sir Gullian, please calm down. Sylvia tried to calm Gullian down, but this only made him more agitated. Stop joking. How could Julius? Calm down. Gullian. Veronica scolded. I'm going to ask about it now. Are you trying to hinder me? Yes, I know I was wrong. Gullian took a deep breath and suppressed the emotions in his heart. However, he still stared at Wu Yin, who was walking at the front. Obviously, he also wanted to know how the whole thing started. That was to be expected. Not only were Julius and Gulian good friends, they were also close friends who had gone through life and death together when they were students. Back then, it was because Julius had been executed that Gulian had become so cold and emotionless. One could imagine how good their relationship was. It was no wonder that Gulian was so excited when he heard such news. Wu Yin only glanced at Gulian once before ignoring his gaze. As he walked, he spoke in response. I only said that Julius might be the mastermind behind the corpse ash dragon. I didn't say that Julius was the mastermind. Really? Veronica nodded subtly. Her face tensed up. Tell me in detail, royal elder sister. Let me tell you. Sylvia pursed her lips. Actually, the reason why Roland thought that the mastermind behind the corpse ash dragon was because of me. Because of you. Veronica turned to look at Sylvia. What's going on? The mastermind behind the corpse ash dragon is called Mikhaos. I met him once. Sylvia lowered her head. Her pretty face changed a few times. I don't know why, but that Mikhaos gave me a very familiar feeling. He gave me the same feeling as Royal Elder Brother. That's why I started to suspect that he might be Royal Elder Brother. Feeling? Gulian couldn't help but ask. Just based on your feelings, how could that be? Just based on your feelings, you can't prove that Mikhaos is Julius. Wu Yin coldly interrupted Gulian. But at least now we can prove that Julius isn't dead. Not dead. Gulian clenched his fists. At the dinner party, that guy admitted it himself. Back then, he didn't execute Julius. Instead, he exiled him. Veronica explained, gritting her teeth. So that's how it is. That Mikhaos gave Sylvia a sense of familiarity and made her suspect that he was Julius. Then Sylvia told Lone about it, and that's why Lone tried to get information out of that guy at the dinner party. Even though I'm a little sorry to the Night King, the current situation doesn't allow us to dilly-dally. Wu Yin confirmed Veronica's words and calmly explained. The reason why Sylvia and I suspect that Julius isn't dead is because Mikhaos gave Sylvia a similar feeling to Julius. So, if we can prove that Julius isn't dead, then the possibility of Mikhaos being Julius is very high, right? Veronica's tone became heavy. It seems that before we find out Mikhaos' true identity, we can't let more people know about this. Compared to that, I'm more concerned about something else. Wu Yin suddenly changed the topic and looked at Sylvia. Sylvia, do you still remember what Mikhaos said? There will be an even bigger feast in the near future. Sylvia nodded, causing Wu Yin to smirk coldly. Then, if the Continental Congress is the stage, the feast that Mikhaos mentioned should be big enough, right? Wah! Sylvia, Veronica, Gulian, and Corset all sucked in a breath of cold air. You're saying that Mikhaos, who might very well be Julius, will attack during the Continental Congress? Veronica sneered and shook her head. That's impossible. All of Loriaman's holy dragon knights have gathered in Fanteon City. Even the Empire would have to think twice before attacking, let alone some corpse ash dragon. They wouldn't even be able to cause a stir. Veronica's tone was full of confidence when she said that. She silently affirmed the strength of Loriaman's holy dragon knights. Yet, Wu Yin said that. Of course, it won't be easy to attack from the outside, but what if they attack from the inside? From inside, Veronica was stunned. Don't forget, Mikhaos is from the Empire. Wu Yin sighed. The Empire's airships should have entered Fanteon City by now, right? Everyone understood what Wu Yin meant. If Mikhaos managed to sneak into the airships of the Sepharo's Empire's representatives, then entering Fanteon City would be a piece of cake. That's not right. Sylvia suddenly remembered. Even if the airships of other factions entered Fanteon City, they would have to be checked before disembarking. It's impossible for anyone to sneak in. Sylvia, don't you understand what Lune is trying to say? The one who answered Sylvia wasn't Wu Yin, but the gloomy Veronica. What Lune is trying to say is that the Sepharo's Empire's representative might be the one who's shielding Mikhaos and allowing him to control the corpse Ash Dragon to attack Fanteon City from behind the scenes. Sylvia was speechless. As long as they are guards or attendants, the participants from the Cypheros Empire will be able to openly bring Makawos into Vantion City and let Makawos attack. Veronica clenched her fists in hatred. Once the attack succeeds, it'll deal a heavy blow to the Chivalry Empire. Even if it fails, the Sepharos Empire can use the excuse of betrayal as an excuse. Furthermore, if that person is Julius, they can even expose his identity and accuse the Chivalry Empire of being unfair. No matter what, it's a win-win situation. Then, Sylvia didn't know what to do. Then what should we do? Don't panic. This is just our guess after all. Wu Yin waved his hand, gesturing for Sylvia and Veronica to calm down. If this guess is correct, then the Empire's representative will probably bring a guard or follower to the masquerade ball tomorrow night. When that time comes, we just need to confirm if the guard or follower is Mikao's, and we can come up with a plan. That's right. Veronica nodded solemnly. Apart from the representative and his guard and follower, the rest will not be allowed to step out of the airships under the Chivalry Empire surveillance, even if they're brought into Vantion City. Therefore, if Mikao's really wants to attack, someone will have to bring him out. Tomorrow's masquerade ball is a good opportunity. As Veronica's words fell, a sense of foreboding washed over everyone's hearts. It took a long time for them to calm down. Chapter 1400. Time quickly passed by as everyone was preoccupied with their own thoughts. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. As expected, the masquerade ball was about to be held. The masquerade ball, as the name suggested, was a ball where all the participants had to wear masks to attend. The purpose of holding the masquerade ball was to promote the relationship between the representatives of the various top forces before the Continental Conference. Every force was inextricably linked to other forces, but these relationships were not all good. Some forces had a very good relationship with each other, while others had a very bad relationship with each other. Take the Lorimon Kingdom as an example. The Shepron Kingdom was the sovereign state of the Lorimon Kingdom, so the relationship between the two was naturally very good. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were wearing the same pants. However, the relationship between the Lorimon Kingdom and the Cypheros Empire was very bad. After all, the Shepron Kingdom and the Cypheros Empire had fought before and killed each other. The Lorimon Kingdom was also a vassal state of the Shepron Kingdom and was the most indispensable fighting force of the Shepron Kingdom. The Night Kingdom that controlled the dragons was undoubtedly a thorn in the side of the Cypheros Empire. The Cypheros Empire wished that they could get rid of the Lorimon Kingdom. Without the Lorimon Kingdom, the Shepron Kingdom's strength would be greatly reduced and they would be wantonly invaded. The Lorimon Kingdom also wished that they could get rid of the Cypheros Empire and protect their sovereign state, the Shepron Kingdom. They did not want the Cypheros Empire's ambitions to succeed. Under such circumstances, how could the relationship between the three be good? In this way, once the Continental Conference was held, two or more forces that had a good relationship with each other would work together to make the content of the conference go towards a situation that was beneficial to them. This would be unfair. Considering this point, in order to let the participants eliminate the gap between the forces, the masquerade ball was held. Wearing a mask and hiding their identity, there would be no difference between the forces that they belonged to. Interacting with each other would be more or less beneficial for the upcoming Continental Conference. In other words, this masquerade ball was like a prelude to the Continental Conference. It could protect the real situation and also build a good relationship. The Continental Conference only allowed the representatives of the various forces to attend. At most, they could bring guards in attendance. But the masquerade ball was different. Anyone related to the leader's camp. Everyone was qualified to participate. Therefore, Wu Yin and the others concluded that if Mikao's really wanted to launch an attack from the inside during the Continental Congress, then the participants of the Sepharos Empire would definitely bring Mikao's to this masquerade ball. At the end of the day, the various forces that came to Vantion City could enter Vantion City. However, for the sake of the safety of the participants of the Continental Conference and the various powers, and to prevent others from taking advantage of the situation, apart from the participants and their recognized guards in attendance, No one else was allowed to leave the airships of their respective powers. Based on this point alone, it was certain that Makawos would participate in the masquerade ball with the participants from the Sephiro's Empire. Unless Makawos didn't want to use the Continental Congress as a stage to attack. Instead, he wanted to attack the participants of the various forces. In that case, Maikavez might hide in the airship and not participate in the masquerade ball. He would wait until the Continental Congress officially started and then be led into the meeting place by the attendants. But this would create a contradiction. That was because the participants from the Sephiro's Empire were also among them. As a citizen of the Empire, Mikhails shouldn't have attacked the participants of the Continental Congress, right? In that case, regardless of whether Maikavez betrayed the Sephiro's Empire or not, the Sephiro's Empire would be jointly pressured by the other forces. Therefore, the only possibility was that Maikavez wanted to launch an attack before the Continental Congress. In other words, he wanted to launch an attack at the masquerade ball. After all, apart from participating in a masquerade ball, the participants didn't care about leaving the airships until the Continental Congress officially started. The Night Kingdom had the right to let them stay in their airships and not go out. Therefore, the masquerade ball was the only opportunity to move freely and launch an attack. Of course, all of this was based on the condition that Maikavez wanted to use the Continental Congress as a stage to realize the bigger banquet that he spoke of. If Maikavez didn't have any intention of launching an attack at the Continental Congress, then all of this would be directly shattered, causing Wu Yin and the others to worry for nothing. However, that also proved that nothing would happen during the Continental Congress. Therefore, this was still worth Wu Yin and the others to do. Fanteon City, in a hall dedicated to the ball. The masquerade ball was held at the highest level of Fanteon City. Fanteon City was famous for its resolute and simple characteristics. Only this hall, dedicated to the ball, used the design style of the Shepard Kingdom. The entire ballroom was grand and magnificent. Even a chandelier used Dragon Chi magnificent crystal as a power source. Once the incantation was chanted, the light would shine down, warming the heart like sunlight. At this moment, the vast ballroom was filled with people, and the scene was quite lively. Everyone present was wearing a mask of different shapes, colors, and styles. However, all of them could only cover their noses and reveal their mouths and eyes. In addition to the orthodox masks that could only cover the eyes, there were also some strange headgear mixed in. The people wearing headgear all had outstanding features and were easily recognized. Therefore, they didn't hesitate to sacrifice their looks and dress up as clowns. The royal orchestra played a lively tune on the opposite side of the door to lighten the atmosphere. Couples of men and women held hands on the dance floor in the center of the ballroom and danced elegantly to the rhythm of the music. There were also people gathered around the bar, tables and sofas around the dance floor, chatting and laughing as they chatted with each other. Looking at the noble-looking gentlemen and ladies with masks covering their faces, Wu Yin is also wearing a tuxedo-like suit. Wearing a mask that looks like a pair of wings that can only cover the area around his eyes, Wu Yin is slowly moving around the venue. Beside Wu Yin was Sylvia. Her dazzling blonde hair was tied into a mature bun, with a dark red ribbon tied on top, reflecting the golden strands of her hair. She wore elbow-length gloves on her hands and a blue evening gown on her body. It was as dazzling as the surface of a lake in midsummer. The gown was tied around her waist, and the fluffy and wide skirt was very eye-catching. In fact, from the beginning, there were always some men who couldn't help but cast their gazes on Sylvia. The butterfly-shaped mask on Sylvia's face couldn't hide her temperament and beauty at all, and had already made the hearts of many men restless. It was also because of this that Sylvia suppressed the shyness in her heart and held onto Wu Yan's arm like a noblewoman. In the eyes of outsiders, they looked like a couple and dispelled the stirring hearts of many men. As for Wu Yan, his heart was also beating fast. Sylvia's figure was already explosive, and her breasts were extremely voluptuous. When she held onto his arm, it was like pressing his arm into the cleavage between those voluptuous breasts. The incomparably soft touch touched Wu Yan's nerves, causing Wu Yin to involuntarily recall the scene of Sylvia's seductive body and the kiss in the bathroom yesterday. For a moment, his mouth became dry. Sylvia also seemed to be recalling the events of that day. Her heart was beating so fast that Wu Yin could clearly feel the frequency of her heartbeat through his arm that was in her embrace. If this continues, it won't be good. Feeling that he was becoming more and more unable to control his desire to take advantage of Sylvia, Wu Yin shifted his attention and asked softly, "Where's Veronica?" Royal Sister didn't participate in the masquerade ball. Sylvia seemed to have been waiting for a long time and couldn't wait to respond. Royal Sister usually doesn't participate in this type of ball. Why? Because... Sylvia stuttered as she explained. Royal Sister, it's impossible for her to wear a dress. Hearing this, Wu Yin almost laughed out loud. Indeed, with Veronica's concept of armor as aesthetics, she would rather go on the battlefield and chop off the enemy's head than wear a dress to the ball. Among these people, there are participants from the Cypheros Empire and Mikaos. Sylvia solemnly looked around at all the masked people in the ballroom. Mikaos usually wears a mask, and he has silver hair. It shouldn't be hard to recognize him. Wu Yin nodded. Just as he was about to speak, a figure appeared in his field of vision and blocked his words. That person, silver hair, wearing a cold steel mask. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.